Welcome to our series exploring the enigmatic realm of unexplained deaths and mysteries. Join us as we delve into perplexing cases that defy conventional understanding, where each clue raises more questions.
The mystery of the Clovis people is one of the most intriguing puzzles in North American prehistory. Thousands of years ago, during the last ice age, a group of early humans, known for their distinctive stone tools, roamed the continent. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, they vanished, leaving behind a legacy of speculation and uncertainty.
So what exactly happened to the Clovis people? I keep hearing about how they were the first to settle North America, but then they just disappeared.
Yeah, it's wild. The Clovis people were thought to be among the earliest groups here. They made these really unique stone tools, spear points, which have been found all over North America. But then about 11,000 years ago, their culture just disappears.
Disappears like overnight?
Not quite overnight, but pretty quickly in archaeological terms. Around that time, something called the Younger Dryas occurred, a sudden cooling period. The climate shifted dramatically, and it's believed that might have played a role. Large animals like mammoths and mastodons, which the Clovis hunted, started dying off. No food means no survival for the hunters. Some think the Clovis couldn't adapt to the environmental changes, and their way of life collapsed.
That makes sense. But if they relied on these massive animals for food and the animals went extinct, couldn't they have just switched to hunting smaller game?
That's what you'd think, but it's not that simple. The Clovis were specialized big game hunters. Adapting to smaller prey or changing their whole way of life might not have been easy, especially if they were already dealing with the chaos of a changing climate. Some believe that instead of adapting, they were replaced by other human groups who were better suited to the new environment.
Indeed, around the time the Clovis culture disappears from the archaeological record, evidence of other groups with different tool-making techniques starts to emerge. Some researchers believe that the Clovis people may have merged with or been replaced by these new groups.
Okay, but you said they just vanished, right? Couldn't they have moved somewhere else? Maybe they integrated with other populations?
Exactly. That's another theory. Genetic studies show that the ancestors of Native Americans don't all come from one single group, so it's possible the Clovis interbred with other populations or were absorbed into them. Their culture may have faded, but their descendants could still be around today.
Another more controversial hypothesis has gained traction in recent years. It's known as the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. This theory suggests that around 12,800 years ago, a comet or asteroid collided with Earth, sparking massive wildfires and causing the rapid climate changes that led to the extinction of both the Clovis people and the large animals they hunted.
A comet? That sounds intense. But is there any actual evidence for that?
Well, it's definitely debated. Some researchers claim they've found signs of an impact, like layers of soot and nanodiamonds that might have been formed by a cosmic collision, but others aren't convinced. Even if it did happen, it's not clear if that was the final blow for the Clovis. It could have been just one part of a bigger, complex picture.
And so, the mystery of the Clovis people remains. Were they driven to extinction by climate change? Did they merge with other groups, their culture lost to time? Or did a cataclysmic event wipe them out, alongside the megafauna they depended on? The answer, it seems, is locked away in the distant past, leaving room for both scientific debate and imagination.
I guess we may never really know, huh?
Yeah, it's one of those unsolved mysteries, but I think that's what makes it so fascinating, the possibility that someday we might just find the missing piece.
It was a serene afternoon in March 1967 when Jim Thomson, the American silk magnate, left his holiday bungalow in the Cameron Highlands of Malaysia. He had been staying with friends, enjoying a quiet break in the cool, misty hills, far from the hustle and bustle of his thriving silk business in Thailand. But that day, as he stepped out for a casual afternoon walk, something extraordinary happened. Something no one would have predicted. Jim Thomson vanished without a trace, leaving behind not only a successful empire but one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. The story of his disappearance continues to stir curiosity, spawning theories ranging from the plausible to the fantastical.
So he just walked off into the jungle and was never seen again? No clues, no witnesses?
Exactly. Not a single sign. They searched for weeks. Police, the military, even locals who knew the terrain well. Everyone combed the jungles. But they found nothing. No body, no personal items, nothing. It's like he disappeared into thin air.
That's just bizarre. I mean, this is Jim Thomson we're talking about. The guy who revived the Thai silk industry, rubbed shoulders with celebrities and diplomats, and lived in that famous house in Bangkok.
Jim Thomson's life was no ordinary one. Born in 1906 in Delaware, USA, he started his career as an architect. But the winds of war took him down a different path. When World War II broke out, he joined the Office of Strategic Services, or OSS, the precursor to the CIA. It was during his service in Southeast Asia that he developed a deep connection with Thailand. After the war, instead of returning to the US, Thomson stayed in Bangkok, where he discovered the fading art of traditional Thai silk weaving. With a vision and entrepreneurial skill, he brought Thai silk to international prominence. His efforts helped create a resurgence in the craft, and soon his fabrics were being used by top designers and even appeared in films like. But Thomson was also a man of mystery, with ties to espionage and a penchant for privacy, which only adds to the intrigue surrounding his disappearance.
You're saying he might have been involved in more than just silk? What, like espionage? Was he still connected to the CIA?
Maybe. Some people believe his ties to the OSS didn't end when the war did. Southeast Asia was a hotbed of Cold War activity, and Thomson had the right connections. It's possible his disappearance wasn't an accident at all. Some think he was assassinated, maybe by political enemies or even rival business interests. There's also a theory that he was kidnapped, maybe by a foreign power or even by the locals for ransom, but none of those theories were ever proven.
And then there's his house in Bangkok, right? That place is still there, filled with all the artifacts and art he collected.
Exactly. His house is now a museum, the Jim Thomson House. It's one of Bangkok's most visited spots. People go there not just to see the art and architecture, but also to learn about this man who had such an impact on Thailand, and yet whose fate remains unknown. It's a bit eerie, actually. Walking through his house, you can't help but wonder what really happened to him.
Do you think we'll ever know the truth?
Who knows? It's been over 50 years. Without a body or new evidence, it's all speculation. The jungle has a way of keeping its secrets. Maybe he's still out there somewhere, buried under layers of earth and foliage, or maybe the truth is something no one has ever imagined. But one thing's for sure, the mystery of Jim Thomson is far from forgotten.
Jim Thomson's disappearance has become a legend, an unsolved puzzle that lingers in the minds of historians, adventurers, and conspiracy theorists alike. Was it an accident? A kidnapping? A carefully orchestrated escape? No one knows for sure. What remains is the story of a man who shaped an industry, lived a life full of adventure and secrecy, and vanished without a trace, leaving behind a legacy wrapped in silk and a mystery wrapped in shadows. The legend of Bigfoot, or Sasquatch, has captivated imaginations for generations. It's a mystery that has woven itself into the fabric of North American folklore, spreading across campfire tales, documentaries, and scientific discussions. Deep in the wilderness of the Pacific Northwest, In the towering forests and shadowed valleys, whispers of a massive, hairy creature walking on two legs have been passed down for centuries. To some, Bigfoot is a myth, a creature of imagination. To others, it's a reality that remains just beyond the reach of modern science. But today, in a cozy cabin tucked away in those very woods, two people find themselves discussing the enigma of Bigfoot. One, a staunch believer, and the other, a curious skeptic.
You can say what you want, but there's just too much evidence to ignore. Think about all the eyewitness accounts over the years. Thousands of people from all walks of life, hikers, hunters, even police officers, have seen something out there. And those footprints, some of them are 24 inches long. How do you explain that?
I mean, come on, Sarah. Footprints? We both know there have been tons of hoaxes, people faking footprints with wooden molds, wearing costumes. It's all a bit too convenient, don't you think? Besides, with all the technology we have today, drones, trail cameras, you'd think by now we'd have clear photos or videos of this supposed creature, not just grainy, blurry footage like that old Patterson-Gimlin film.
The Patterson-Gimlin film, a short piece of shaky footage from 1967, is still one of the most famous pieces of alleged Bigfoot evidence. Shot in Bluff Creek, California, it appears to show a large bipedal creature striding through a clearing, glancing back at the camera before disappearing into the trees. For some, this film is the smoking gun, proof that Sasquatch exists. For others, like Tom, it's just another elaborate hoax.
You know, the Native Americans had legends of Sasquatch long before the media got involved. They called it the Hairy Man. These stories have been passed down for generations. There's got to be something to them, don't you think? And it's not just in North America. There are stories of similar creatures all around the world. The Yeti in the Himalayas, the Yeren in China. How could all these cultures, who had no contact with each other, come up with such similar creatures?
Okay, I'll admit, it is interesting that these legends pop up in different cultures. But you know how folklore works. It's like an ancient game of telephone. Stories get passed down, they get exaggerated, and before you know it, you've got this myth about a giant ape wandering around the woods. But where's the hard evidence, Sarah? Where are the bones, the fossils? With all these sightings, surely someone would have found a body by now.
Tom's skepticism reflects a common argument. Despite countless sightings and a wealth of anecdotal evidence, there's a glaring absence of physical proof. No bones, no DNA samples that definitively prove the existence of a creature like Bigfoot. Some argue that the dense forests could easily conceal a body, while others say the lack of remains is the clearest sign that Bigfoot is nothing more than a tall tale.
Well, maybe they're just really good at avoiding us. Think about it, mountain gorillas were considered mythical creatures until the early 20th century. And look at giant pandas. People thought they were just stories too. Sometimes animals can live in remote areas and avoid detection for centuries. What if Bigfoot is the same? Maybe it's some kind of undiscovered primate, something like the ancient Gigantopithecus. That was a giant ape that lived in Asia, right? Maybe some of them survived and migrated to North America.
Sure, but Gigantopithecus went extinct hundreds of thousands of years ago, and even if they did somehow survive, don't you think we would have found some trace of them by now? Even gorillas and pandas left bones and fossils behind. Plus, you can't compare Bigfoot sightings to scientific discoveries like those. People wanted to find proof of those animals, and they did, but with Bigfoot, it's always just missed it or saw it but didn't get a picture. It's like chasing a ghost.
Despite Tom's logic, Sarah's belief is unwavering. For her, the mystery of Bigfoot isn't about the hard evidence alone, but about the human desire to believe in something greater, something unexplained. She knows that many sightings can be attributed to misidentifications, bears walking upright, strange shadows, even the human mind playing tricks in the deep woods. But she can't shake the feeling that there's something out there, just beyond the limits of what we know.
But what if it's not a hoax, Tom? What if we just haven't found the right piece of evidence yet? I mean, think of all the people who swear they've seen something. Are they all lying? Or mistaken? It seems unlikely. There's something in the human psyche that connects with this idea of a mysterious hidden creature. It's not just about science, it's about wonder. And who knows, maybe one day someone will prove it for real.
The conversation fades, leaving the debate about Bigfoot's existence unresolved, just like the mystery itself. For every believer like Sarah, there's a skeptic like Tom, and the legend endures. Whether it's a remnant of ancient folklore, a misidentified animal, or an actual undiscovered species, Bigfoot remains one of the most captivating and elusive mysteries of modern times. Somewhere, perhaps in the dense forests, the truth might be hiding, waiting to be found. In the heart of the Ottoman Empire, amidst the grandeur of 16th century Istanbul, an admiral named Piri Reis would leave behind a map that would puzzle historians, scientists and adventurers for centuries. It is a tale that weaves through the fabric of time, blending ancient knowledge with the intrigue of what may be lost, hidden beneath the veil of history.
Enter two modern-day scholars, Dr. Amelia Carter, an archaeologist, and Dr. Jack Bennett, a historian specializing in ancient cartography.
They sit in a dimly lit library, the Piri Reis Map unfurled before them, illuminated by the soft glow of a nearby lamp. Jack, I still can't get over this. Look at how precisely the western coast of Africa and South America are drawn. This is from 1513, and yet, it's more accurate than any other map from the time. How could Piri Reis have known?
That's exactly what's baffled historians for centuries. Piri Reis himself said he used about 20 different sources, including ancient maps that no one's ever seen. He claimed some of his charts dated back to the time of Alexander the Great, and don't forget, he also used Columbus's maps.
And here, this is where the real mystery begins. Some scholars argue this section is showing Antarctica, drawn without any ice. But Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until centuries later, in 1820. How could that be possible?
That's the heart of the controversy, isn't it? Some researchers claim this part of the map shows Antarctica's coast as it would have looked without ice. If that's true, it implies someone, either Piri Reis or whoever drew the original maps, had knowledge of Antarctica thousands of years ago when the continent wasn't covered by ice. It's almost unthinkable.
Unless there was an ancient civilization, far more advanced than we've ever believed, who mapped it out before the last ice age. Something like Atlantis.
You know, I've read Hancock, Von Daniken and all those guys. They make compelling cases. Ancient astronauts, advanced pre-ice age civilizations. It's tempting to believe that someone mapped out Antarctica long before human history as we know it even began, but Amelia, there's a more conventional explanation too. Cartographers of the time used imaginative guesswork alongside real geographical knowledge. The Antarctica you're pointing to might just be a distorted version of South America's southern coast. Piri Reis could have simply misinterpreted his sources.
But it's still so accurate, especially for the early 16th century. He wasn't just guessing when it came to Africa or South America. Look at the detail. There's even a note where Piri Reis says some of his information came from Portolanos. Ancient sea charts. What if one of those was an ancient map of Antarctica?
There is a tension in their conversation, a tug-of-war between the rational and the speculative. While Jack clings to the plausible explanations rooted in conventional history, Amelia entertains the notion that ancient civilizations may have known more than we give them credit for.
All right, so you're saying that thousands of years ago, some advanced civilization with superior navigation and mapping techniques charted Antarctica before it was frozen, and then what? They just vanished, leaving no trace except a few scattered maps that somehow survived through the ages.
Stranger things have happened, Jack. And remember, Piri Reis wasn't just any cartographer. He was an Ottoman admiral with access to ancient libraries and manuscripts from all over the known world. We can't just dismiss his sources because they don't fit neatly into our version of history.
For centuries, scholars and adventurers have pondered over the same questions. Could the Piri Reis Map be a remnant of forgotten knowledge, a relic passed down through time from an ancient advanced civilization? Or is it simply the product of medieval cartographers working with the limited tools and information they had, their maps distorted by imagination and guesswork? Perhaps we will never know the full truth behind the map's origins, but one thing is certain: the Piri Reis Map, with its precise coastlines and controversial depictions, will continue to stir the imagination of all who encounter it. It is a riddle wrapped in history, a mystery that calls us to look deeper into the past and wonder, just what did the ancients know?
Whether it's Antarctica or not, it's still incredible, Jack. Whoever made this had a profound understanding of the world, long before the age of discovery. It makes you wonder, how much have we lost to time?
Maybe more than we'll ever know.
The origin of life on Earth, one of the greatest mysteries in science. How did simple molecules swimming in the primordial oceans give rise to the complex web of life we see today? Over time, brilliant minds have proposed various theories, each offering a different glimpse into the ancient past. Today, we'll listen in on a conversation between two friends, Emily and Jack, as they explore the possibilities.
You know, the more I read about the origin of life, the more confused I get. There are so many theories. Primordial soup, hydrothermal vents, panspermia. It's like a mystery novel with too many suspects.
Yeah, it does feel like a whodunit, except in this case it's more of a howdunit.
I guess it all starts with the idea that life began in a chemical soup of organic molecules.
A concept born in the 1920s from the minds of Alexander Oparin and J.B.S. Haldane. It suggests that Earth's early oceans were a cocktail of chemicals, perhaps methane, ammonia, hydrogen and water vapor, where lightning or ultraviolet radiation sparked the formation of life's building blocks.
Right. I think that was tested in wasn't it? They tried to recreate early Earth conditions in the lab, sparking electricity through a mix of gases. And voila, they got amino acids, the basic components of proteins.
Yeah, exactly, but amino acids alone don't make life. There's still a huge leap between simple organic molecules and a living, self-replicating organism.
Oh, you're talking about the idea that life could have started at the bottom of the ocean, near those deep-sea vents that spew hot water and minerals.
Exactly, those vents create chemical gradients that could have powered the early formation of organic compounds. Some scientists think that life didn't need sunlight at all, just the energy from these vents, along with the right chemical reactions.
It makes sense, especially since we found all kinds of weird life forms down there. Bacteria and organisms that thrive without sunlight, using sulfur or other chemicals for energy.
The hydrothermal vent hypothesis paints a vivid picture of life bubbling up from the dark depths of the ocean, sustained by chemical energy rather than sunlight.
You mean, that's the theory where life, or at least the building blocks of life, came to Earth on comets or meteoroids, right? It sounds like science fiction, but it's kind of cool to think we might all be aliens.
Exactly. If life's ingredients were drifting through space, they could have crashed onto Earth, especially during its early days when the planet was constantly being bombarded by asteroids.
So instead of life emerging here, it could have been seeded from space. I like the idea. It means life might be more widespread in the universe than we think.
Raises profound questions. Is life a cosmic phenomenon scattered like seeds across the universe, waiting for the right conditions to take root? But not all scientists think we need to look beyond Earth.
Then there's some say that life didn't start with DNA, but with RNA, since RNA can both store genetic information, catalyze reactions, kind of like a Swiss Army knife for molecules.
I've heard of that. RNA could have been the first molecule capable of replicating itself, setting the stage for evolution long before DNA and proteins showed up.
Exactly. RNA is a good candidate because it can do the job of both information storage, like DNA, and perform some of the functions of enzymes. Once you've got a system that can replicate itself, natural selection can kick in, and things start getting more complex.
But how do we go from that to something as complex as a cell?
And therein lies the crux of the mystery. Even if RNA was the first molecule of life, how did it organize into complex membrane-bound cells capable of growth, reproduction, and metabolism? Another theory might hold a clue.
Have you heard of that? Instead of starting with genetic molecules like RNA, this idea suggests life might have started with basic metabolic processes.
Wait, so life started with chemical reactions, like the kind we see in metabolism today, and RNA or DNA came along later?
Yeah, that's the basic idea. The theory is that energy-harnessing reactions could have emerged first, maybe in mineral-rich environments, and then eventually evolved into more complex forms that included genetic material. It's a chemistry first, genes later approach.
This theory challenges the conventional idea that genetic material must come first. Instead, it suggests that life's true origin lies in chemical reactions that harnessed energy long before any sophisticated molecular machinery existed.
Oh, and don't forget Cairn Smith's clay hypothesis. That's one of the wildest ones, where life started on the surfaces of clay minerals.
Yeah, the idea that these clay surfaces acted like templates for organic molecules, helping them assemble into more complex structures, maybe even early forms of RNA.
It's funny to think that we might owe our existence to mud, but there's something strangely poetic about life emerging from the earth itself.
The clay hypothesis is a reminder of the interconnectedness between geology and biology. Minerals from the earth may have played a crucial role in shaping the first life forms, showing how diverse the possible pathways to life might be.
And then there's the whole question of chirality. Why are biological molecules like amino acids left-handed and sugars right-handed? What caused that preference?
I read that cosmic rays or polarized light from space might have influenced it. It's a small detail, but it adds to the mystery.
Yeah, it's like the universe itself had a hand in shaping life's building blocks.
Despite all these theories, we still don't have a definitive answer. Did life arise in the shallow seas, deep in the oceans, or even come from the stars? Each hypothesis offers a piece of the puzzle, but the full picture remains just out of reach. For now, the origin of life on Earth continues to inspire, confound, and excite those who dare to explore the deepest questions of existence.
You know, after all that, I feel like we're no closer to figuring it out, but it's kind of beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes you realize that life, wherever it came from, is a pretty miraculous thing.
And so, the mystery of life's origins continues. Though we may not have the answer yet, the journey of discovery is as thrilling as the destination itself. In the bustling streets of Philadelphia, amidst the hum of traffic and the clatter of daily life, lies one of the city's strangest and most enduring mysteries. Small, cryptic messages, embedded directly into the asphalt underfoot. They're so easy to miss. Walk by too quickly and you'll pass right over them. But for those who notice, the words they carry linger long after the tiles have been spotted. Words like Toynbee idea in movie 2001, resurrect dead on planet Jupiter. What could that mean? Who put them there and why?
I mean, think about it. You've got these weird little plaques stuck in the road, some of them half erased from years of wear. Toynbee idea, planet Jupiter. What is that even supposed to mean? It's like the ramblings of someone trying to tell us something big, but what?
For decades now, the Toynbee tiles have appeared across cities in the United States, from New York to Chicago, and even in faraway cities like Buenos Aires and Santiago. These small, colourful plaques seem to defy logic. They've been pressed into streets where cars, pedestrians, and time itself work relentlessly to erase them, but somehow, many still endure. Their messages, strange, almost otherworldly, have become a subject of fascination for conspiracy theorists, artists, and urban explorers alike.
Okay, but who's even doing this? It's not like you can just glue something into the pavement without anyone noticing, right? Are people sneaking around at night with a blowtorch or something? It feels like some kind of secret mission.
Ah, the identity of the mysterious Tyler, the one or ones responsible for these cryptic messages. That's part of the allure, isn't it? No one knows for sure. Some say it's the work of a single eccentric man from Philadelphia named James Marasco. They say he had bizarre ideas about the historian Arnold Toynbee and Kubrick's 1968 masterpiece. Marasco, or whoever the Tyler might be, seems to believe in the possibility of resurrecting the dead, on Jupiter of all places.
Resurrect the dead on Jupiter? That's got to be a joke, right? I mean, Toynbee was a historian, not some sci-fi writer. And as far as I know, Jupiter isn't exactly a place you'd want to visit, let alone come back to life on.
The theory behind the tiles is as confounding as the tiles themselves. The words Toynbee idea are believed to refer to the historian Arnold J. Toynbee, but even scholars can't quite agree on how his work connects to this strange message. Toynbee wrote about the cyclical nature of civilizations, how they rise and fall, how human societies can be renewed. But did he ever suggest resurrection on another planet? Not quite. Still, in some strange, inexplicable way, the Tyler seems to have combined Toynbee's ideas with the themes from where humans transcend their earthly limitations and reach a new stage of existence in the cosmos.
So you think whoever's behind this believes we're going to transcend, like in the movie, some kind of evolution, or maybe even escape? Could that be why they picked Jupiter? It's so far away, almost unattainable.
Exactly. Some believe the tiles are the work of an individual or group who envisioned humanity's potential beyond Earth in ways that might sound delusional to most of us. But the Tyler, whoever they are, seems to believe it. Resurrect dead on planet Jupiter. It's not just a wild idea, it's a call to action, or maybe a warning. Then again, maybe it's something only the Tyler truly understands.
Okay, but why hide behind these tiles? If they believe in something so huge, why not just say it outright? What's with the secrecy?
That's part of the mystery, isn't it? Some tiles include paranoid rants about media suppression, claiming that powerful forces are keeping this Toynbee idea from the public. Perhaps the Tyler believes they're being silenced, and the tiles are their way of subverting the system, tiny acts of rebellion hidden in plain sight.
That's actually kind of clever, but the tiles keep showing up in different cities, right? How are they still doing it? And what about all the new tiles? Are they still the same person's work, or copycats?
Another mystery. The first tiles were discovered back in the 1980s, primarily in Philadelphia. But as time passed, they began to appear in major cities across the US and even internationally. Are they all the work of one individual, or has the idea spread, carried on by followers? Some of the newer tiles mimic the originals, but no one knows for certain if the Tyler is still active or if their legacy is being carried on by others.
Man, it's wild that something so simple, so small can spark this much curiosity. It's like a riddle nobody's solved yet, or maybe we're not supposed to.
Exactly. The Toynbee tiles have become more than just plaques embedded in the street. They've become an enigma, a puzzle that stirs the imagination. Part urban legend, part philosophical statement, and part work of art. These tiles have left their mark, not just in the asphalt, but in the minds of those who stop to wonder at their meaning. In the end, the Toynbee tiles may be less about solving a mystery and more about embracing it. They remind us that not all questions have answers, and sometimes the mystery itself is what keeps the story alive. the shadowy corners of history, there are tales that blur the lines between fact and fiction, stories that tug at our deepest curiosities, but ultimately leave us wondering. Among these is the legend of the Dropa Stones, a mystery that has captured the imagination of many but eludes the light of truth. Let us listen now, as Jake and Sarah embark on a discussion that seeks to unravel this enigmatic puzzle.
So, Sarah, ever heard of the Dropa Stones? Supposedly they're these ancient discs found in a remote cave in the Bayan Ha Mountains on the China-Tibet border. Some people say they're evidence of an alien crash landing 12,000 years ago, no less.
Oh, here we go again with the ancient alien theories. Let me guess. Small skeletons, strange hieroglyphs, and some sort of secret cover-up, right?
Exactly, it's got all the hallmarks of a good mystery. The story goes like this. In 1938, a Chinese archaeologist named Chipu Te and his team discovered these strange tombs. Inside were the remains of small, frail beings, only about 4 feet tall, with large skulls, supposedly not human.
And let me guess, they conveniently disappear from history without a trace. Classic.
And so the tale begins. Like many legends, the Dropa Stones' origins are shrouded in hearsay and mystery. No documented proof, no verified evidence, just whispers of an impossible discovery.
But here's the kicker. The team also found these round stone discs, over 700 of them, scattered around the tombs. Each disc had a hole in the center and tiny inscriptions spiraling outward, like some sort of ancient phonograph record. No one could figure out what the symbols meant until a Chinese professor named Tsum Nui supposedly cracked the code in 1962.
And I'm sure his translation revealed something straight out of science fiction.
Exactly. Tsum Nui supposedly translated the inscriptions, and what he found was wild. The discs apparently tell the story of a group of aliens called the Dropa, who crash-landed on Earth thousands of years ago. They couldn't fix their ship and were stranded here. They tried to make peace with local tribes, but
the humans didn't take kindly to their new extraterrestrial neighbors and hunted them down. I mean, come on, Jake. Doesn't this sound a bit convenient? Mysterious artifacts, aliens, and no solid proof. It's like the perfect recipe for a modern myth.
Indeed, Sarah voices the thoughts of many skeptics. For while the story of the Dropa Stones promises much, it delivers little in terms of tangible evidence. No photographs, no records of these supposed tombs, no bones. Just a tale that seems to grow taller with each telling. Jake, okay, I get it, but think about it, it's not right. Ancient astronaut theorists say that these stories aren't unique. There are countless cultures with legends of beings descending from the sky. Maybe the Dropa were real and maybe they crash here. Sarah, I'll admit it's a compelling story, but there are so many holes. For one, where's the archaeological evidence? No one's ever seen these so-called Dropa Stones. And what about this professor, Tsum Nui? He doesn't show up in any credible records, it just doesn't add up. Jake? Yeah, that's true, there's barely anything to back it up. Even the story of Tsum Nui translating the stones only surfaced in a Russian publication in the 1960s. After that, the whole thing exploded into the UFO community, and well, you know how those circles can run with a story. As Jake acknowledges, the Dropa Stones saga is fraught with inconsistencies and glaring absences. The so-called Professor Tsum Nui remains a ghost. No academic records, no trace of his work outside of the tale. And yet, stories like this persist because they tap into something deeper. The human yearning for the unknown, the possibility that we are not alone. Sarah, you know, I've always been fascinated by how these stories spread. It's like people want to believe in the extraordinary, even when the evidence is lacking. We crave mystery. The Dropa Stones, the Nazca Lines, even things like the Bermuda Triangle. They make the world feel bigger, stranger. Jake? Exactly. Even if the Dropa Stones are a hoax or just a tall tale, they still spark the imagination. People want to believe that there's more to our history than we know. That maybe, just maybe, There's something out there we haven't discovered yet. And there it is, the crux of the matter. Fact or fiction, truth or myth, the Dropa Stones remind us of our insatiable curiosity. For every skeptic there is a dreamer, for every doubter a believer. Whether the Dropa were visitors from the stars or figments of a hoaxer's imagination, their legend continues to stir questions that may never be answered. Indeed, the mystery of the Dropa Stones may never be solved, but perhaps that's part of the allure. For as long as there are unsolved riddles in the annals of history, there will be those who seek, who wonder, and who believe. In the vast wilderness of the internet, a series of cryptic puzzles emerged, capturing the imagination of curious minds. It began on a cold January day in 2012 when a mysterious message appeared on 4chan. This message was unlike any other. A simple image, but one that would soon launch one of the most enigmatic internet phenomena. Cicada 3301.
Two friends, Alex and Maya, sat in their dimly lit apartment, huddled around a glowing laptop. Their fascination with cryptography and internet mysteries had led them down many rabbit holes, but nothing quite like this. Have you heard of this, Maya? The Cicada 3301 puzzle. It's like the ultimate challenge for codebreakers, cryptographers, heck, even philosophers.
Yeah, I've read about it. It's not just a puzzle, though. It's got layers of meaning, hidden messages, and references to literature and art. But no one knows who's behind it. Some people think it's a recruitment tool for a secret organization.
Right, it all started with that 4chan post, a plain black image with some text. It said something like, "We're looking for intelligent individuals," and then challenged people to find the hidden message in the image. Simple, but genius.
Steganography, right? Where you hide data inside an image or a sound file. I remember hearing that once someone decrypted the image, it led them to a website with more puzzles.
And so it began. The internet's most ambitious puzzle hunt. Steganography was just the beginning, a mere introduction. Participants would soon find themselves deciphering complex codes, solving ciphers, and even delving into prime numbers and cryptographic techniques.
Look at this. People had to use tools like PGP encryption to figure out the next step. They'd decrypt one layer only to discover it was part of something much bigger. It's like each step is a piece of an elaborate puzzle.
Yeah, but it wasn't just about code breaking. Cicada 3301 referenced philosophy and literature, like Blake and T.S. Eliot. Some of the clues were philosophical, almost spiritual. There were messages about enlightenment and self-discovery.
I know, it's like they mixed cryptography with the liberal arts education. But it gets even crazier. Some clues led people to physical locations around the world. I mean, there were actual posters with QR codes found in places like Sydney, Warsaw, and Paris. Imagine following a virtual trail across the internet, only to end up scanning a QR code in the middle of a street halfway across the world.
You know, some people think it was a recruitment tool, right? Like for a government agency or an underground organization, looking for the best cryptographers and hackers out there.
Yeah, I've heard that theory. Some say it could have been the NSA or MI6. But others think it's more of a hacktivist group like Anonymous or even a group of privacy advocates. I mean, the puzzles definitely had a lot to do with encryption, privacy, and anonymity.
Or it could just be an ARG, an alternate reality game. Some people believe Cicada 3301 was just a really well-crafted, immersive experience with no deeper meaning than the puzzle itself. No recruitment, no secret societies, just a challenge.
But if it was just a game, who was running it? And for what purpose? Theories abound, some plausible, others more outlandish, but no one knows for sure. The true mystery lies in the fact that, despite its global reach and the brilliance of its solvers, no one has ever come forward claiming to have been recruited.
You know what's even weirder? After the 2014 puzzle, there were no more official updates from Cicada. Sure, there have been copycats, but the original puzzles just stopped. It's like they vanished.
Maybe they found who they were looking for, or maybe it was all just a social experiment. It's strange though. Why go through all that effort only to disappear? No one knows if anyone actually solved it all the way, or if they just gave up.
Or maybe the ones who did solve it were sworn to secrecy. You know, like in those spy movies, solve the puzzle, get recruited into a top-secret organization, and you can never talk about it again.
Yeah, and next thing you know, they're out there decrypting international secrets or designing encryption systems for the CIA. Who knows? The whole thing is as mysterious as the day it started.
And so, the mystery of Cicada 3301 lingers in the digital ether unresolved. Was it a recruitment tool for a secret organization, an elaborate hoax, or perhaps something even more enigmatic, a call to those seeking not just answers but enlightenment? Whatever it may be, Cicada 3301 remains one of the most compelling internet phenomena, and the few who embarked on the journey will forever wonder what lay at the end of the road they couldn't fully traverse. In the spring of 1974, on a remote property nestled in Fort George Island, Florida, the Betts family made a discovery that would spark curiosity, wonder, and a flurry of controversy. It all began with a brush fire that scorched a portion of the land surrounding their home. As they inspected the aftermath, they stumbled upon an object that would soon capture the imagination of believers in the strange and the unexplained.
Look at this thing, Mom. It's a perfect sphere. Feels like metal, too.
Odd? Really odd. It doesn't look like anything I've seen before. Do you think it's from the fire? Maybe it was buried underground.
Maybe, but it's so smooth. No signs of burning. And it's heavy. 22 pounds at least. It doesn't seem damaged at all.
At first, the Betts family assumed it might be an old cannonball, or maybe even a piece of space debris. After all, their property was no stranger to military history, and space exploration was a hot topic in the 70s. But soon, the sphere began to defy all logical explanations.
Mum, watch this. When I put it down on the floor, it rolls on its own. It's not even a slope, but look, it's changing directions.
That's impossible. It's just a ball, Terry.
I know, but every time I roll it, it seems to stop and change direction by itself. It doesn't even go to the edges. It just stays within a certain area, like it's following some kind of path.
The Betts family soon realized that this was no ordinary object. When they played music nearby, especially on their guitar, the sphere seemed to respond. It hummed, resonated, and at times even vibrated, sending chills down their spines.
Do you hear that? It's making a sound, like it's alive somehow.
I don't know what's going on, but this isn't just some old piece of junk. What if it's from somewhere else, you know, like a probe from outer space?
As the strange behavior of the sphere continued, the Betts family couldn't keep it a secret for long. Word got out, and soon the military, scientists and media descended upon their home, eager to get a glimpse of the so-called Betts mystery sphere.
We took it to the Navy base today. They ran some tests. X-rays, you know, but they didn't find anything. It's solid metal, no seams, no openings. They're baffled.
They even thought it might be some kind of military equipment, but they couldn't figure out who made it or why. It's as if it just exists.
The Navy's X-rays revealed nothing out of the ordinary, aside from a few minor irregularities in the sphere's density. They confirmed it was made of stainless steel or a similar alloy. Yet despite their best efforts, no one could explain its strange movements or the sounds it emitted. Theories began to swirl.
What if it's some kind of alien technology? It moves like it knows where it's going. And when we play music, it hums back. Maybe it's communicating.
Terry, we don't know that, but I admit there's something different about it. I just don't know what.
While some speculated that the sphere was of extraterrestrial origin, others believed it might be a sophisticated piece of machinery or space debris. The excitement surrounding the sphere grew, but so did the skepticism.
Look, I've seen industrial bearings that look exactly like this. It's probably a check valve or some kind of industrial component. The movement, imperfections in the sphere's balance. The sound, maybe the metal resonating to the guitar's vibrations.
But that doesn't explain why it behaves so differently. Why does it avoid the edges? Why does it hum?
Sometimes we see what we want to see. The brain plays tricks. Objects like these have explanations, but mystery often clouds reason.
As time passed, the mystery surrounding the sphere began to fade, along with the media attention. Experts debunked many of the claims, suggesting that the sphere's odd behavior could be explained by natural phenomena, such as slight imperfections in the surface it was placed on, or vibrations from traffic affecting its movements.
So, what now? Is that it? Just a weird ball from some factory?
I don't know, maybe. But even if it is just a piece of machinery, it's been an adventure, hasn't it?
To this day, no definitive explanation has been found. Was it simply a man-made object with peculiar properties? Or was there more to the mystery than science could uncover? The Betz mystery sphere remains an enigma, a story that lingers at the edges of rational explanation, leaving just enough room for the imagination to wander. The dream began in a dimly lit room filled with the faint scent of aged wood and iron. In the center, on a pedestal bathed in a soft, ethereal light, stood the Antikythera Mechanism, gleaming like a forgotten relic from another world.
Is it real? I mean, am I really standing here looking at this?
In this place, reality is flexible, but yes, it's here and it's as real as anything you might imagine. You're seeing the Antikythera Mechanism mirror, the oldest analog computer in history, built thousands of years ago by minds just as curious as yours. That's the thing about ancient knowledge. It holds a pull, doesn't it? This mechanism isn't just a machine, it's a doorway to the past, a key to mysteries that were forgotten for centuries. And yet here you are, drawn to it, almost as if it's waiting for you to uncover something.
Mira's hand reached out, hesitating just inches away from the cool metal. She could feel a hum, faint, yet somehow powerful, as though the mechanism itself was alive with knowledge.
So many gears, so many tiny parts all moving in perfect harmony. I feel like, I don't know, like it's more than just a machine. What does it mean, Elias? Why would I dream of something like this?
Dreaming of the Antikythera isn't a coincidence, Mira. Think of it this way. The mechanism once mapped the stars, predicted eclipses, charted the heavens themselves. Perhaps it's a symbol of your desire to understand life's mysteries, a need to find your own alignment with something greater.
So, it's about finding answers. About piecing things together, like a puzzle. I've been feeling lost lately, like I'm scattered, trying to make sense of all these different parts of my life.
Exactly. Just as the ancient craftsmen of the mechanism aligned each tiny gear to create a working whole, maybe your mind is telling you it's time to connect the pieces of your own life. You're on the verge of a discovery, Mira, whether it's something about yourself or perhaps even the path you're meant to take.
The room grew quieter, as if waiting for Mira to continue. Her gaze sharpened as she looked closer, noticing tiny inscriptions, faint lines etched into the metal. Each one seemed like a symbol, a fragment from an old language, something she felt she should understand.
I feel like it's guiding me. There's something comforting in its complexity. Every little piece has its place, working towards something much bigger than itself. And maybe that's what I'm looking for. A sense of purpose, of how I fit into everything around me. It's strange, but I feel like I already knew that, like it's knowledge that's always been inside me, but I needed to see this to remember it.
Dreams have a way of doing that. Sometimes they bring us back to our own forgotten wisdom, buried beneath the noise of everyday life. Hold on to that feeling, Mira. Remember, just as the mechanism is a marvel of intricate parts, so are you.
The room began to fade, the soft hum of the mechanism growing distant. Mira felt herself drifting back, carrying with her a renewed sense of purpose. As she opened her eyes, the image of the Antikythera lingered in her mind. a symbol of alignment, discovery, and the hidden wisdom that waited patiently within her.
The scene begins on a quiet, unassuming street in the Setagaya ward of Tokyo, a place where life usually hums along with the comforting, rhythmic peace of a family neighborhood. But in the early hours of December 31st, 2000, a horror unlike any this neighborhood had ever seen was discovered. A whole family, Mikio Miyazawa, his wife Yasuko, and their two young children, Nina and Rei, had been brutally murdered inside their own home. The questions of how, and more hauntingly, why, still reverberate unanswered through the years.
You know, every time I revisit this case, I feel like I'm staring at pieces of a puzzle, where someone just threw away the critical pieces.
Detective Akiyama leans back, looking down at the file before him, the paper edges dog-eared from years of poring over the same details. Each page, a fragment of a story that is both senseless and hauntingly real.
The crime scene had evidence scattered everywhere. Fingerprints, DNA, even clothing. I mean, who does that? This wasn't some slick, planned murder where the criminal vanishes without a trace. No, this person stayed there, ate ice cream from their fridge, used their computer, even went to the bathroom. It's as if they felt comfortable, like they weren't just some random intruder.
The killer's comfort and audacity are unsettling, and it's that brazen carelessness that first struck the investigation team. To the neighbors, the Miyazawa family was just like any other. A hard-working father, a kind mother who taught English, two bright-eyed children, Nina and Rei. And yet they became victims in their own home, their sanctuary shattered beyond repair.
Then there's the sand.
Akiyama's eyes flicker as he picks up a report. The sand, a puzzling detail even after all these years. It was found in a waste pack left at the scene, analyzed and traced to California in the United States, possibly around the Mojave Desert.
Sand from California. Can you imagine? It's almost poetic, except that it adds no poetry to this tragedy. I remember thinking that maybe, just maybe, we'd found our link. The DNA even suggested the killer might have mixed ancestry, part East Asian, part European. Yet, nothing. Thousands of people questioned, databases combed, no match.
And still the questions multiply. The investigation uncovered a key detail. The killer used a sashimi knife, one they'd recently purchased at a nearby store, to carry out the attack. A chilling thought that someone had prepared even minimally for a crime so violent. And when that knife broke mid-attack, they coldly found another knife from the Miyazawa kitchen to finish the job.
I've thought a lot about the killer's motives. A robbery gone wrong? Doesn't add up. There was money left untouched. Something personal? Maybe. But why the whole family? And how on earth could they do something so horrific and just vanish? We checked everything. Everything. It's like they slipped into the shadows that night and never came out again.
Despite the brutality, there were oddly specific traces left by the killer that didn't seem to add up. A pair of gloves, a scarf, a jacket left behind, as if the killer wasn't concerned about covering their tracks, or worse, as if they wanted to leave a part of themselves behind.
I think sometimes about the kids, Nina and Rei. It keeps me up at night. I try to imagine what could have driven a person to do something so inhuman to such innocence. But after so long, I think we may never really know we just know that they're gone, and that someone, somewhere, remembers what happened that night.
The detective's gaze hardens even as his voice lowers to barely a whisper. There are no answers for this family, not yet. Just lingering shadows and an endless stream of questions.
Picture it. January 1998 in the British town of Malmesbury, Wiltshire. Two unlikely heroes are about to make history. Not human heroes, but pigs. Two ruddy Tamworth pigs with a taste for freedom and a sharp dislike of slaughterhouses. These pigs, soon to be known as the Tamworth Two, have just leaped off a truck destined for the abattoir. Little did they know they would become infamous fugitives. The media soon dubs them Butch and Sundance after the famous outlaws, as they go on a daring escape through fields and rivers, evading capture at every turn.
I mean, of all animals to make a run for it, pigs, Tamworth pigs, they literally leaped off a truck and broke through a fence like a pair of swine Houdinis.
And they ran for it too. Apparently, they headed straight into the wilderness like some sort of Piggy, Bonnie and Clyde. The Daily Telegraph even started calling them Butch and Sundance.
Simon Hoggart from the Daily Telegraph took a particular interest in their story, writing articles that transformed Butch and Sundance into national icons. The British public was captivated by their story, charmed by their audacity, and outraged by the thought of them being returned to slaughter.
Can you imagine the local news? Breaking, 2 pigs on the run, authorities flummoxed. Meanwhile, the pigs are out there hoofing it like not today.
Exactly, and they were so elusive. They even crossed rivers to throw off the authorities. Every day, the papers had updates on their whereabouts.
So the whole countryside is out looking for these pigs, and every night the farmers and police must have gone home scratching their heads. Just imagining the absurdity of it is wild.
By then, it wasn't even about the meat, it was personal. It became this massive national mystery. Where are they now? The Tamworth Two still at large. The public couldn't get enough of it.
Butch and Sundance spent days evading capture. Reports came in from locals who had seen them near fields, rivers and hedgerows, but each time the authorities got close, the 2 escapees managed to slip away. They became almost mythical figures, embodying a spirit of resilience and escape that delighted the public.
So they went from being on the dinner plate to national heroes with a retirement plan.
Absolutely legendary. The Great Pig Escape of 1998, something to remember.
Finally, after days of tracking, Butch and Sundance were caught. But by that point, they had won the hearts of the public. No one wanted them sent back to the slaughterhouse. The Daily Mail newspaper purchased the pair, arranging for them to retire peacefully at the Rare Breed Centre in Kent. And thus, Butch and Sundance, the Tamworth Two, spent their days in peaceful retirement, forever etched in the folklore of British countryside tales. Their adventure might have ended, but their story would live on for generations. The hospital was bustling as usual on the evening of February 19th, 1994. Nurses and doctors moved quickly from patient to patient, administering care as best they could. But just after 8 p.m, something strange would occur that would leave its mark not only on the staff working that night, but on the medical community as a whole. Gloria Ramirez, later known as the Toxic Lady, would arrive at Riverside General Hospital. What started as a routine emergency quickly spiraled into a mysterious, almost supernatural experience.
Dr. Gorczynski, you should see this. She was barely coherent when she came in, and her heart rate is spiking. They said she has late-stage cervical cancer, but these symptoms, they don't seem right.
All right, let's start her on sedatives and painkillers. I'll draw some blood to check for any abnormalities. But yes, it's unsettling.
As they drew the blood, they noticed something even stranger. Inside the vial, floating in Gloria's blood, were small manila-colored crystals. Susan blinked, taken aback, feeling her stomach twist with sudden nausea.
What is that in her blood? It looks like crystals, or I don't know, this isn't normal.
It's definitely not normal, but we need to keep moving. I'll alert the lab. Maybe they can figure it out.
As she turned to relay the findings to the lab, Susan suddenly felt lightheaded. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and she stumbled, gripping the counter to steady herself. She wasn't the only one. Other members of the team who had gathered around Gloria began to cough, their eyes watering.
Oh no, I feel dizzy and nauseated.
Dr. Gorczynski, attempting to reassure her staff, tried to step in, but she too felt an intense wave of dizziness. One by one, the medical team began experiencing symptoms, seemingly out of nowhere. Susan collapsed to the floor, barely conscious. Others suffered shortness of breath, some even convulsed. The emergency room became a scene of chaos, and the decision was made to evacuate the hospital.
What happened tonight? It doesn't make any sense. We weren't exposed to anything that we know of, and yet something was there. I can still feel it in my bones. This wasn't in any of our textbooks.
After Gloria Ramirez was pronounced dead, her body was sealed in a special container to await autopsy. Every precaution was taken to prevent further contamination. When the toxicology reports were returned, they left more questions than answers. The unusual crystals, the strange odor, and the toxicity that had apparently spread to the ER staff all pointed to something beyond ordinary medicine. Days after the incident, theories began circulating. Some believed it was a case of mass hysteria. Others, however, sought to understand the science behind what could have caused such widespread mysterious symptoms among the medical staff.
Given her history, it's possible she applied some kind of cream, DMSO perhaps, which some patients use for pain relief. Under the conditions in the ER, it could have broken down, causing the toxicity. That might explain the symptoms, the crystals. Possibly.
I've heard the DMSO theory, but dimethyl sulfone breaking down like that, forming dimethyl sulfate. I don't buy it. There was something else. I still have symptoms that shouldn't come from just exposure to a toxin. It's in my bones.
As speculation continued, another suggestion emerged: mass psychogenic illness. The idea was that the sight and smell of Gloria's unusual symptoms triggered a psychological reaction among the staff. But for those who were there, this answer felt hollow, insufficient to explain the convulsions, the nausea, and the lingering health issues experienced by staff.
Mass hysteria. Tell that to the necrosis in my knees and the damage in my bones. There's nothing hysterical about the scars left by that night.
The theories remain unsolved, with the DMSO hypothesis widely accepted but not fully proven. For the medical community, Gloria Ramirez's case has become a haunting reminder that even in the age of advanced science and medicine, some mysteries remain beyond human understanding. To this day, the name The Toxic Lady evokes both intrigue and unease, a story of a woman whose final moments left a lasting toxic mark on everyone she touched.
On a cold November afternoon in 1970, in the quiet valleys outside Bergen, Norway, two hikers stumbled upon something they would never forget. A body, charred and twisted, lying hidden among the rocks. This would be the beginning of one of Norway's most haunting mysteries.
She would come to be known as the Isdal Woman.
And her story, well, that's what keeps us guessing.
It's as if she came out of nowhere, really. No family, no friends, no past we could trace. When we found her belongings, suitcases with wigs, makeup and, well, the labels ripped off her clothes, it was clear she didn't want to be known. Whoever she was, she went to great lengths to stay invisible.
The woman's body was discovered in an area locals call Death Valley due to its history of tragic accidents and suicides. But Detective Jensen, the man who led the investigation, couldn't shake the feeling that this was something far more sinister.
There was no clear evidence of foul play, but the scene was unsettling. The body was partially burned, lying in a strange position. Her arms were bent outward, almost like she was reaching for something, and there were empty bottles nearby. Whoever she was, she met a grim end. I can't forget the sight.
For Detective Jensen, things became even stranger as they started piecing together her movements. Police tracked her across Norway and Europe, finding that she'd stayed in hotels under several different names. Each alias came with a new identity, a different passport. Sometimes she was Italian, other times she claimed to be Belgian.
You don't just collect aliases and fake passports for nothing. Every new hotel she stayed at, she changed her name. One alias was Claudia Tielt. The next week she was Vera Jarl. She spoke multiple languages, wore wigs and kept to herself. It was like she was hiding from something or someone.
And as detectives dug deeper, they found even more disturbing clues. In a suitcase linked to her, there were unmarked medicines, cosmetics, and an array of wigs. One item, however, raised even more questions. A map with certain locations marked, almost as if she'd been tracking specific spots.
One of the locations marked on the map was a military testing site. That's when the theory of espionage came up. The Cold War was in full swing back then, and the intelligence game was, well, messy. But without concrete evidence, we were left to wonder if she was really a spy or if it was all just a story people wanted to believe. Detective Jensen wasn't ready to close the case, though. The woman's dental records, with traces of a particular kind of dental work, indicated that she may have spent time in Central or Eastern Europe. But, as is often the case with mysteries, every answer brought more questions. In her stomach, we found high levels of sleeping pills, 50 to 70, enough to be fatal. But what struck us as even stranger was the smoke in her lungs. She was alive when the fire started. The implications haunted me, you know. Was it an accident? Was it forced?
The theories were endless. Some believed she was an intelligence courier, betrayed by her own side. Others thought it was a planned suicide, an attempt to escape an unknown torment. Even now, the case file remains open, though the mystery grows colder with each passing year.
I don't think I'll ever know who she was or what really happened. But when I close my eyes, I can still see that valley, her face. Or what was left of it. It's strange how a person you never knew can live so vividly in your memory.
The Isdal Woman left behind no name, no family, no clear purpose. Just questions, and the quiet echo of a life that vanished as mysteriously as it had come. The truth may be buried with her, or perhaps it's hidden, waiting, just out of reach.
In the vast expanse of space, mysteries abound, but few have captivated both scientists and conspiracy theorists alike as much as the legend of the Black Knight satellite. Some call it an alien probe, monitoring Earth for thousands of years. Others dismiss it as nothing more than a misunderstood piece of space debris.
So, have you heard about the Black Knight satellite? It's supposedly this ancient alien satellite orbiting Earth. Some say it's been watching us for thousands of years.
Yeah, I've heard bits and pieces about it, but is it really alien? I thought it was just some lost piece of space junk.
The mystery surrounding the Black Knight satellite has many layers, beginning with reports from the 1950s and 60s. This was the age of the Cold War, when tensions were high and any unidentified object in space was seen as a potential threat.
Well, it all started back in the 1950s. Apparently, some newspapers published stories claiming that the U.S. Air Force had detected 2 unknown satellites orbiting Earth. This was years before anyone had launched Sputnik.
Wait, so even before the Soviet Union put the first satellite into orbit, there were already reports of unknown objects up there?
Exactly. That's what makes it so interesting. And then there was Nikola Tesla in the early 1900s. He claimed to have received strange, repeating radio signals, which he thought were coming from an extraterrestrial source. Some people think those signals were from the Black Knight.
Tesla? Really? I mean, that does make it sound mysterious, but couldn't those signals have just been natural radio waves?
Sure, that's one explanation. But people who believe in the Black Knight think those signals were proof it was sending out data even back then. They even have a name for this phenomenon, long-delayed echoes, or LDEs, weird signals that repeat long after they're first sent out.
In the 1960s, these mysterious radio signals were just the beginning. It was in 1998, during NASA's STS-88 mission, that the Black Knight satellite gained its most iconic image. A dark, oddly shaped object was photographed floating above Earth, sparking renewed interest and speculation.
Okay, so what about that famous photo? You know, the one taken by NASA during the STS-88 mission. It looks well, strange. Not like anything you'd expect from space junk.
That's the one. People say that's definitive proof of the Black Knight. NASA claims it's just a thermal blanket that floated off during a spacewalk. But some think that's just a cover story. I mean, look at it. It doesn't look like a blanket.
I admit the shape does look odd, but could it just be pareidolia? You know, when we see familiar shapes in random objects, like how people see faces in clouds.
Maybe, but others say the shape is too specific. And some conspiracy theorists think that it's an alien probe. They claim it was sent to monitor Earth and it's been in orbit for over 13,000 years.
13,000 years? Now that sounds far-fetched. How would they even calculate that?
It's theories like these that keep the Black Knight mystery alive. Some people believe it's a message from an ancient civilization, or even from an extraterrestrial race. Yet skeptics say the legend of the Black Knight is nothing more than Cold War paranoia, mixed with human imagination.
Look, I get that it sounds wild, but isn't it fascinating? I mean, what if it really is an alien artifact? Wouldn't that change everything we know about human history and our place in the universe?
Sure it would, but there are simpler explanations. It could just be debris, like NASA says. Besides, in the Cold War era, every unknown object was treated with suspicion. Maybe people just saw what they wanted to see.
So you think it's just a coincidence that the Black Knight satellite story keeps popping up even now?
Maybe. Or maybe it's the allure of a good mystery. People want to believe there's something bigger out there. Who doesn't love the idea of aliens keeping an eye on us?
In the end, the Black Knight satellite remains a story with just enough mystery to keep people guessing. Whether it's an ancient alien probe, a stray piece of space debris, or a product of overactive imaginations, the Black Knight continues to orbit not just our planet, but our minds.
The Tamworth Barbershop Ghost is a spooky story from the quiet town of Tamworth, England. Known for its medieval streets and quaint architecture, Tamworth might seem like an unlikely place for paranormal activity. However, one particular barbershop, situated in the town's historic centre, has a reputation for supernatural occurrences. The shop, an old building with Victorian features and a vintage charm, has been said to be haunted for decades, with tales of eerie sightings and unexplained noises that keep locals intrigued. Witnesses have reported strange phenomena, including tools moving on their own, lights flickering without explanation, and cold spots that appear randomly around the shop. The ghost itself is often described as a shadowy figure that appears in mirrors or in reflections in the glass door. This figure is believed to be a former barber, a man who supposedly died under mysterious circumstances in the early 20th century. According to local law, he was a dedicated worker who spent most of his life in the barbershop, and it's said that his spirit stayed behind to keep an eye on the place. Barbers who have worked in the shop over the years recount instances where they felt like they were being watched or felt a sudden drop in temperature. Some claim to have seen the ghostly barber's face briefly in the mirrors, while others have heard soft whispers when no one else was around. Despite these eerie encounters, there is an almost friendly air to the hauntings, leading some to believe that the spirit is not malevolent but rather protective of the place he cherished. Today, the legend of the Tamworth Barbershop Ghost has become part of local folklore, with residents and tourists alike drawn to the barbershop to catch a glimpse of the ghostly barber. Though it's difficult to verify any of the paranormal claims, the stories surrounding the shop continue to be passed down through generations, keeping the mystery alive. The tale has even inspired ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts to visit Tamworth to see if they can capture any evidence of the barber's lingering presence.
Judge Joseph Force Crater's mysterious disappearance in 1930 remains one of the most enduring unsolved cases in American history. Known as the Missingest Man in New York, Crater's vanishing has sparked endless theories, speculation, and intrigue. Judge Crater was appointed to the New York Supreme Court in April 1930 by then-Governor Franklin D. Roosevelt. Well-dressed and sociable, he was known for his intelligence and connections with New York's powerful Tammany Hall political machine. These associations later fueled theories linking him to organized crime and political corruption. On August 6, 1930, Judge Crater was last seen after dining with a friend and his mistress at a restaurant on Manhattan's West 45th Street. He had reportedly withdrawn a substantial sum of money, around $5,000, nearly $90,000 today, shortly before his disappearance. He left the restaurant, entered a cab, and was never seen again. Initially, his wife, Stella Crater, thought he was simply delayed by work. When he didn't return after weeks, she finally reported him missing, sparking a massive police investigation. Despite a widespread search, no trace of him was ever found. Many theories have emerged over the years about Crater's fate. One of the most prominent speculates that he was silenced due to his connections with Tammany Hall and knowledge of political corruption. Some believe he was caught up in organized crime activities or became an inconvenient figure for powerful people in New York's political machine. Another theory suggests Crater was involved in financial improprieties or embezzlement and may have disappeared to avoid repercussions. Some think he was forced to flee either by choice or under threat. However, no concrete evidence has surfaced to prove this. Romantic entanglements add another layer of intrigue. Crater's extramarital affairs, particularly with showgirls, were widely known. Some speculate that one of his romantic partners or their associates might have been involved in his disappearance, perhaps motivated by jealousy or revenge. A long-held theory posits that Crater staged his own disappearance to start a new life. His substantial cash withdrawal, coupled with his connections and potential troubles, support this notion. However, his friends and family doubted he would abandon his responsibilities or leave behind his life and reputation. Over the years, occasional clues emerged, though none led to a breakthrough. In 2005, a retired teacher from Queens, Stella Ferrucci Good, revealed a letter her late husband had written, claiming that Crater was murdered by organized crime figures and buried beneath the Coney Island boardwalk. This lead, though intriguing, yielded no concrete evidence upon investigation. Judge Crater's case has had a lasting cultural impact. His story became synonymous with unsolved mysteries, and to pull a crater was slang for vanishing without a trace. His disappearance remains a haunting reminder of the unknowns lurking behind closed doors in high places. Without new evidence, Judge Crater's case will likely remain an unsolved mystery, capturing imaginations as a chilling tale of a man who vanished into the shadows of New York's dark underbelly.
The story of Thee is one shrouded in eerie silence and profound mystery. His body was found, mummified, in an abandoned warehouse in the quiet Basque town of Etsebari. Seated on a chair, hands on his lap, his presence felt strangely serene but haunting, as if he'd chosen to wait out eternity alone in that forgotten space. The strangest part? He had no name, no past, nothing that could tell the investigators who he was or how he ended up in that desolate spot. His identity and cause of death remain a mystery, captivating locals and investigators alike.
So they found him just sitting there, like he'd been waiting all those years for someone to notice.
Exactly. Just imagine. Years and years and no one even knew he was there. It's chilling, honestly. They said he'd been there so long he was practically part of the warehouse itself. No signs of struggle, no clues. Just a man, seated, almost peaceful. And the weirdest thing, there was no identification, no reports of him missing.
That's what I can't wrap my head around. No family? No friends looking for him? You'd think someone would have noticed his absence.
But no one had. His fingerprints, his DNA, scanned through databases in Spain and abroad, turned up nothing. He was, it seemed, a ghost. Investigators speculated he could have been a transient, perhaps someone living under the radar with no close connections to notice his absence. And yet his solitary presence in Etsibari, a quiet residential town, felt almost deliberate.
Yeah, and there's no indication of foul play. No signs he'd been hurt or forced there. Some people think he might have just chosen to be there. That maybe he died of natural causes. Maybe even an overdose. But to just sit down and fade away like that? It doesn't make sense.
What if he wasn't alone? I mean, what if someone placed him there after he died? You hear about these things in crime documentaries. People trying to cover up deaths, even peaceful ones. It'd explain why no one knows anything about him.
The theories swirled among the townspeople and investigators alike. Was he a recluse who died alone, slipping away in a place no one would find him? Or was he placed there, hidden in plain sight, as part of something darker, more calculated? Either way, the lack of information became more than just a barrier. It was an invitation for whispers, a doorway to speculation.
I mean, think about it. Someone could have left him there for a reason. Maybe he wasn't from Etsibari at all. Maybe he was brought there because it's so quiet, so isolated. It would have been years before anyone stumbled across him.
But then why not try to hide him better? Leaving him there, sitting like that? It's almost respectful, like they wanted him to be found someday.
That's what makes this mystery so unique. The body wasn't just hidden away in a corner. It was placed, no, almost displayed, as if he was still alive, watching the years slip by around him. And even as forensic experts examined every possible lead, he remained a nameless figure, an enigma surrounded by dust and silence.
Who knows if we'll ever learn the truth? I read they even checked his dental records, but nothing came up. It's like he's a man without a past, left there for reasons only he, or whoever might have left him there, could understand.
It's sad, really, to think of him sitting there for so long, waiting for, what, closure, recognition? I just hope one day we'll know who he was.
Until that day comes, there remains a quiet mystery, a nameless soul whose story eludes every attempt to unravel it, leaving behind only questions and a chair covered in dust.
The stone spheres of Costa Rica, also known as, are a fascinating archaeological mystery dating back to pre-Columbian times, primarily concentrated in the Diquís Delta region of Costa Rica. Hundreds of these near-perfectly round stone spheres, made of granodiorite, which is a type of igneous rock, were discovered in the 1930s during land-clearing operations by the United Fruit Company. The spheres vary greatly in size, from a few centimeters in diameter to over 2 meters, with the largest weighing as much as 16 tons. Their precise roundness and the technology used to shape and transport them continue to puzzle archaeologists. These spheres are believed to have been created by the Diquís culture between 800 CE and 1500 CE. Although the purpose of the spheres remains unknown, many theories have emerged over the years. Some suggest that they served as markers for social or ceremonial gatherings, while others propose that they were aligned with astronomical events or directional indicators for travel. Despite their enigmatic purpose, these spheres highlight the sophistication of the Diquís people in terms of art, mathematics, and stoneworking skills. In addition to their round shape, what makes the spheres particularly remarkable is the mystery of their transportation. The nearest source of granodiorite lies miles away from where many spheres were found, raising questions about how the Diquís people managed to move them over such distances. Some speculate that they may have rolled the stones, but this is only theoretical as no definitive evidence has been found. In 2014, UNESCO recognized the spheres and the Diquís archaeological sites as World Heritage Sites, acknowledging their historical significance and mystery. Since their discovery, many spheres have been moved, damaged, or taken as ornaments, which has further complicated attempts to understand their original placement and context. The stone spheres of Costa Rica remain one of Central America's greatest archaeological enigmas, sparking both scholarly and public intrigue due to the blend of skill, mystery, and ancient craftsmanship they represent.
The Jameson family disappearance remains one of the most eerie and unsolved mysteries in Oklahoma's history. In October 2009, Bobby and Sherilyn Jameson, along with their 6-year-old daughter Madison, went missing while exploring a remote wooded area near Red Oak, Oklahoma, with the intention of purchasing land. They were last seen on October 8th, and days later their truck was discovered abandoned on a dirt road. Inside the vehicle, authorities found their wallets, IDs, a GPS device, phones, Sherilyn's purse, and an unusual amount of cash, around $32,000. The family dog was also found inside, alive but severely malnourished, adding to the unsettling nature of the scene. There were no signs of struggle in or around the vehicle, but the Jamesons had seemingly vanished without a trace. The mystery deepened over the years as investigators delved into the family's background and personal life, leading to a range of theories and speculations. It was known that both Bobby and Sherilyn had been struggling with personal and health issues. Friends claimed that the couple had a growing interest in spiritualism and believed they were haunted by spirits, which contributed to the family's reportedly erratic behavior in the weeks leading up to their disappearance. Security footage from their home showed Bobby and Sherilyn packing their truck in a seemingly absent-minded, repetitive manner, loading and unloading items in a way that looked almost trance-like. This footage has been widely discussed as a potential clue, though it has not provided concrete answers. For 4 years, no trace of the Jamesons was found despite extensive searches. Then, in November 2013, skeletal remains were discovered by hunters about 3 miles from where the truck had been left. These remains were later identified as belonging to Bobby, Sherilyn, and Madison Jameson. However, the bodies were so decomposed that determining the cause of death proved impossible. The discovery of the remains only intensified the mystery, as the distance from their vehicle suggested they had traveled a significant distance into the remote wilderness, yet no clues explained why or how they ended up in such an isolated spot. Various theories have since circulated about what happened to the Jamesons, ranging from foul play to accidental causes. Some have proposed that the family got lost in the dense forest and succumbed to the elements, while others believe they may have encountered someone who led them further into the woods with ill intentions. The case remains unsolved to this day, and no single theory has been universally accepted. The haunting disappearance of the Jameson family has left a lasting impression, and the Oklahoma wilderness serves as a grim reminder of the mystery that may never be fully explained.
The mystery of consciousness, often called the hard problem, is one of the deepest and most enduring puzzles in philosophy, neuroscience, and psychology. At its core, it raises the question, why does subjective experience exist at all? Consciousness isn't simply about the brain processing information. It's about the inner, first-person experience, the sensation of what it is like to be something. For instance, when we look at the color red, we not only perceive its wavelength through our senses and neural processing, but also experience a unique quality or associated with it. The nature of this subjective experience and why certain processes in the brain give rise to conscious awareness remains profoundly enigmatic. One central aspect of this mystery is the hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers. He distinguishes between easy problems of consciousness, like understanding how the brain processes information or produces behavior, and the hard problem, which concerns why and how these processes lead to subjective experience at all. Unlike physical processes that can be broken down and understood through scientific study, subjective experience seems to resist explanation in purely physical terms. Many theories have emerged from materialist perspectives that assert consciousness arises purely from neural processes to dualist or panpsychist views, which propose that consciousness may be a fundamental aspect of reality. Several theories have been proposed to explain consciousness. For example, the Integrated Information Theory, or IIT, suggests that consciousness corresponds to a system's capacity to integrate information. This implies that complex systems with high levels of interconnectivity may exhibit more conscious experience. Another approach, the Global Workspace Theory, posits that consciousness is like a spotlight on certain brain processes that are broadcast to other parts of the mind, making them accessible to decision-making and self-reflection. These theories attempt to map aspects of consciousness onto neural or computational structures, yet they often fall short of explaining why these mechanisms lead to the unique subjective qualities we experience. The nature of subjective experience also brings up questions about personal identity and the self. How do individual experiences, perceptions, emotions, and thoughts integrate into a single coherent sense of self? While neuroscience has identified parts of the brain involved in self-recognition and introspection, the feeling of being someone remains difficult to explain. Some propose that the self is an illusion, a narrative constructed by the brain to organize experiences, while others argue that self-awareness is a fundamental property of consciousness. Consciousness remains deeply mysterious, as scientific study continues to uncover the what and how of neural processes, but not the why of subjective experience. Philosophers, scientists, and scholars from diverse fields continue to debate whether consciousness is an emergent property of complex systems, a fundamental component of the universe, or something beyond our current understanding entirely. It challenges the limits of scientific inquiry, making it both an intellectual frontier and a source of wonder that ties into profound questions about human existence and reality itself.
The Aurora, Texas UFO incident of 1897 is one of the earliest and most intriguing accounts of a reported UFO crash happening decades before the famed Roswell incident. On April 17, 1897, locals in the small town of Aurora, Texas, reported seeing a cigar-shaped airship that crashed into a windmill on the property of a man named Judge J.S. Proctor. According to an article published shortly after in the impact caused an explosion that scattered debris across the land, allegedly damaging Proctor's property, particularly his windmill and water tank. This crash reportedly left behind metal fragments and, most astonishingly, the remains of what townspeople described as a small alien body. Eyewitnesses who claimed to have seen the body were convinced it was not human. In a strange twist, the townspeople decided to give the extraterrestrial a burial in the local Aurora cemetery, as if it were a deceased person from their own community. A headstone was placed over the grave, etched with a crude image of the supposed airship. This story of the crash and alien burial circulated widely, and over the years it attracted UFO enthusiasts and researchers from around the world. The headstone eventually disappeared, and the site of the grave became a point of contention. When researchers requested permission to exhume the grave in the 1970s, the town denied the request, heightening speculation and mystery. Critics have questioned the credibility of the incident. Some argue that the story was simply a hoax meant to revive the town's declining fortunes. Aurora had been hit hard by a string of tragedies, including a fire, a devastating crop failure, and a spotted fever epidemic. Local resident Brawley Oates, who owned the land years after Judge Proctor, claimed that the water from the well near the crash site made him ill and contributed to his arthritis, further deepening the lore around the crash. Skeptics highlight inconsistencies in the accounts and lack of evidence, attributing the incident to a combination of town desperation and early fascination with the idea of flying machines, as reports of airships were common in the late 19th century. Others, however, believe it represents one of the first documented cases of extraterrestrial visitation. Today, the Aurora incident remains a mystery, fueling both local legend and larger discussions about the possibility of alien life. The Aurora Cemetery even has a historical marker referencing the incident, preserving the story as part of the town's lore and adding to the enduring allure of this early UFO tale. The Tybee Island nuclear bomb refers to an undetonated Mark 15 hydrogen bomb lost off the coast of Savannah, Georgia, near Tybee Island in 1958. The incident occurred on February 5th during a training exercise conducted by the U.S. Air Force. A B-47 bomber carrying the 7,600-pound bomb collided mid-air with an F-86 fighter jet. While the crew of the B-47 was able to remain airborne despite sustaining damage, they faced a serious dilemma. The hydrogen bomb was creating a weight imbalance, jeopardizing their control of the aircraft. After consulting with military officials, the pilot was instructed to jettison the bomb to prevent a crash. He released it over the waters near Tybee Island, where it quickly disappeared into the depths of Wassaw Sound. The bomb has been missing ever since. The Mark 15 hydrogen bomb was one of the early, powerful thermonuclear devices developed by the United States. Although not as powerful as later models, it still had an estimated yield of up to 3.8 megatons, about 250 times the power of the Hiroshima bomb. According to the Air Force, the bomb did not contain a plutonium core, which would make a nuclear detonation unlikely. However, later investigations and declassified documents have suggested that it may, in fact, contain radioactive materials such as uranium and other explosive elements, raising concerns about its potential danger if disturbed. Over the years, there have been several attempts to locate the missing bomb, but all have been unsuccessful. The U.S. government has downplayed the threat posed by the device, claiming that it is unlikely to cause harm due to its presumed lack of a plutonium trigger. Nonetheless, some nuclear experts have raised concerns about possible environmental hazards, especially if the bomb's casing corrodes and releases radioactive materials into the surrounding waters. The mystery of the Tybee Island bomb has fueled speculation, conspiracy theories, and even local legends. Some residents worry about the environmental impact or the potential for an unintended explosion, while others regard it as a strange piece of local history. In the decades since the incident, various official and private searches for the bomb have taken place, often triggered by reports or rumors, but none have succeeded in locating it. The Tybee bomb remains one of several nuclear weapons lost by the U.S. military during the Cold War, and its exact location and status remain unknown.
The Flatwoods Monster is a mysterious legend that originated in the small town of Flatwoods in Braxton County, West Virginia, following a strange sighting on September 12, 1952. Known also as the Braxton County Monster, this figure has captivated locals and UFO enthusiasts alike, becoming one of the most well-known cases in American UFO folklore. On that September evening, a group of local boys spotted a bright light streaking across the sky. Believing it to be a meteor, they followed it to a nearby farm where they claimed to have encountered an otherworldly object and a terrifying creature. The witnesses, including two young brothers, Edward and Fred May, and their friend Tommy Heyer, quickly shared their story with Edward and Fred's mother, Kathleen May. She, along with a National Guardsman named Eugene Lemon and others, joined the boys to investigate the strange sight. When they reached the area, the group reported seeing a pulsating red light, and soon after, a tall creature with a frightening appearance. Accounts varied, but the creature was generally described as standing around 10 feet tall with a blood-red face and a green metallic or scaly body. Its head was shaped like a spade or ace of hearts with glowing eyes and long thin arms. The creature was said to emit a strong, sulfuric odor, which caused some of the witnesses to feel sick. When Lemon shone his flashlight on the being, it supposedly made a hissing sound and began gliding toward them, prompting the group to flee. The sighting quickly made national news and drew attention from various investigators, including military personnel, media outlets, and civilian UFO researchers. The US Air Force, which was running an official investigation into UFO sightings under Project Blue Book, looked into the incident but did not release any formal conclusions. Skeptics suggested that the light the witnesses saw was likely a meteor, and the creature could have been an owl or other animal perched in a tree, with shadows and their heightened emotional state distorting its appearance. Since then, various theories have emerged about the nature of the sighting. The most common theory, known as the meteor and barn owl hypothesis, suggests that a meteor was observed across parts of Maryland, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia that evening, which could explain the fiery streak in the sky. Some skeptics propose that the creature was a barn owl, which has a distinctive flat facial disc resembling the Ace of Spades head witnesses described. The green body could have been a trick of shadows and foliage in the low light. Other theories suggest a government cover-up, with some UFO researchers arguing that Project Blue Book's lack of a formal conclusion and the subsequent military presence indicate that authorities were concealing evidence of a crashed UFO or extraterrestrial encounter. Alternatively, sociologists and psychologists have suggested that Cold War-era fears of atomic and other unknown threats may have amplified the witnesses' anxiety, leading to exaggerated or misinterpreted natural phenomena. The Flatwoods Monster has since become a significant symbol in UFO lore and has inspired numerous books, documentaries, and references in pop culture, including appearances in video games and television. The small town of Flatwoods celebrates the legend with annual festivals, and local businesses sell monster-themed memorabilia. Flatwoods has even erected monster chairs where tourists can take photos, cementing the creature as a source of local pride and fascination. While the Flatwoods Monster remains a mystery, it is a powerful example of how a single event can evolve into a legendary tale, embedding itself deeply into both a community's identity and the broader world of paranormal lore.
In 1974, the discovery of a woman's body in the dunes of Provincetown, Cape Cod, set off one of the longest-running mysteries in U.S. crime history. On July 26th, a 13-year-old girl stumbled upon the remains of a woman estimated to be in her mid-20s to early 30s, lying on a beach towel, her head resting on folded jeans. The woman had been brutally murdered. Her hands were missing, possibly to prevent identification, and some teeth had been removed, further complicating the effort to trace her. Her body was partially decomposed, indicating that she had likely been dead for several weeks, and the cause of death was determined to be blunt force trauma to the head. Wearing blue jeans and a bandana, she carried few other clues about her identity or the events that led to her death. Known only as the Lady of the Dunes, her case quickly grew cold despite numerous investigations and extensive nationwide efforts. Over the years, theories abounded. Some suspected a connection with organized crime, while others pointed to infamous killers like Haddon Clark and James Whitey Bulger. One of the more intriguing theories emerged from author Joe Hill, who speculated that the Lady of the Dunes might be an extra in the 1975 film, which was filmed in Martha's Vineyard, not far from the crime scene. A woman in the background of the movie appeared to wear similar clothing to those found on the Lady of the Dunes, reigniting public interest and sparking renewed speculation. Still, despite repeated attempts with facial reconstructions, DNA testing, and dental records, no new information came to light. This enduring mystery finally saw a breakthrough nearly 5 decades later, in 2022, when advancements in forensic genealogy allowed authorities to identify the Lady of the Dunes as Ruth Marie Terry, a 37-year-old woman from Tennessee. Her DNA was linked to living relatives, at last revealing her name and life story. The revelation opened new lines of investigation, with law enforcement examining individuals close to her and re-examining old evidence to determine how she ended up in the dunes of Cape Cod. In a conclusive turn, authorities ultimately named her husband as her killer, solving the Lady of the Dunes case. What had been one of America's longest-standing cold cases now had answers, with the tragic details of Terry's death finally coming to light. Her story serves as a somber reminder of the advances in forensic science and the unwavering dedication of investigators who spent decades seeking justice for a woman once known only as the Lady of the Dunes.
Have you ever looked into the Paleolithic cave art in Europe? Those ancient paintings are just incredible, but the mystery behind them is just as fascinating.
I know. They're so old, like tens of thousands of years, right? And the artwork's amazing. I wonder how people back then even managed to create something that survived this long.
Exactly. Some of these paintings go back as far as 40,000 years. Chauvet Cave in France, for instance, has paintings that are around 36,000 years old. And in El Castillo Cave in Spain, there's art that might be 40,800 years old. Can you imagine? These might be the oldest known artworks by humans.
It's crazy. And what they painted? Animals, right? I've seen photos. Horses, bison, mammoths. It's like they were drawing what mattered most to them.
Yes! Animals were the main subjects, almost like the ancient humans wanted to capture the spirit of these creatures. Some scientists think they had a spiritual or symbolic connection to these animals. And some caves show incredible detail and technique, like shading to make them look three-dimensional. They were definitely skilled artists, using charcoal and ochre pigments to get these effects.
It makes you wonder why they went through all that trouble. I mean, they had to go deep into these caves in total darkness. They would have needed some kind of torch or fire just to see what they were doing.
That's part of the mystery. Why go to such a hidden place? Some researchers believe the art might have had a spiritual or ritualistic purpose. Maybe they thought caves were connected to a spirit world, like they were painting inside a sacred space.
Or maybe it was something practical, like hunting magic. I've read that some theories say the paintings were a way to increase hunting success, like, if I paint a bison, I'll catch a bison.
Yeah, that's a big theory too. Others think the paintings might have been a way to teach or communicate, maybe to show others what animals looked like, or to tell a story. I mean, we can only guess, but it does feel like they were trying to communicate something important.
That makes sense. And what about those abstract symbols and handprints? The animals are incredible, but the symbols are so mysterious.
Right. There are all sorts of geometric shapes, dots, lines, even grids, and the handprints. Some of them are missing fingers, which could mean different things. Maybe they were injured, or maybe it was symbolic, like a ritual gesture. It's so fascinating because they appear in multiple caves, as if the symbols had shared meanings.
It's like a whole language we can't understand. And those handprints, maybe they're signatures, like a way of marking, I was here. It's amazing to think of people leaving a piece of themselves behind, like an early form of identity or pride in their work.
Exactly. And because these caves are fragile, a lot of them are closed off now. Human presence damages them over time, so they've made replicas for people to visit. Lascaux Cave, for instance, has a replica called Lascaux 2. It's almost identical to the real one, but people can explore it without harming the original paintings.
That's good. But it must be sad not to see the real thing. I get why they want to protect them, though. It's a wonder these paintings lasted this long in the first place.
And it's even more mysterious because we don't know exactly who made them. Most were likely Homo sapiens, our ancestors, but some evidence suggests that Neanderthals might have done similar art in other parts of Europe. That could mean Neanderthals also had symbolic or artistic expression.
I'd love to know what was going on in their minds. Did they paint these animals to tell stories or to feel connected to nature? And did they think of it as art, or was it something even bigger?
That's the big question, right? We may never know. But it's amazing to think these images are an echo from thousands of years ago, showing that even then, humans were expressing something deeply creative, maybe even something spiritual.
It's like the ultimate mystery. These paintings give us a peek into their world, but they'll always keep some secrets to themselves.
The mystery surrounding the Soviet submarine K-129 remains one of the most enigmatic Cold War-era incidents. In March 1968, the K-129, a Soviet Golf II-class ballistic missile submarine, was lost in the Pacific Ocean with 98 crew members on board. While the exact reasons for its sinking are still unclear, the submarine was on a routine patrol mission and was last heard from on March 8. When it failed to check in as scheduled, the Soviet Navy launched a massive search operation, but their efforts were unsuccessful. The K-129 was ultimately found by the United States after intercepting Soviet naval activity and conducting a covert search. Using specialized deep-sea equipment, the US was able to locate the wreck nearly 16,500 feet down, about 1,560 miles northwest of Hawaii. The United States' discovery of K-129's location led to one of the most ambitious and secretive intelligence operations of the Cold War, known as Project Azorian. The operation, authorized by the CIA, sought to recover the submarine and its contents, including potential nuclear missiles, Soviet codes, and classified equipment. To avoid suspicion, the CIA worked with billionaire Howard Hughes, who publicly announced that he was constructing a deep-sea mining vessel, for seabed mineral extraction. However, the vessel was actually designed to recover the submarine. In 1974, the successfully retrieved a portion of K-129's hull and some crew remains. Despite its partial success, much of the mission's results remain classified. To this day, there are no official confirmations on what was retrieved, nor why the submarine sank. Multiple theories exist to explain the fate of K-129. The most widely accepted hypothesis among Soviet experts was a mechanical failure or accidental explosion, but American officials have speculated on other possibilities, including a collision with a US submarine or an attempted rogue mission. One theory suggests that K-129's crew might have been involved in an unsanctioned mission to launch a nuclear missile at Hawaii, intending to provoke the United States and then blame China for the attack. However, this theory is not widely accepted due to the lack of substantial evidence and is often dismissed as speculative. The recovery operation sparked diplomatic tension between the Soviet Union and the United States, with the Soviets aware of but unable to prevent the American recovery efforts. The secrecy surrounding Project Azorian remained intact until 1975, when a journalist uncovered details, leading the CIA to respond with the famous phrase, "We can neither confirm nor deny," giving birth to what is now called the Glomar response. This phrase became a standard tactic used by US intelligence agencies when discussing classified matters. To this day, the K-129 incident remains a subject of intrigue and speculation. Most details about what exactly caused the submarine's sinking and what information or materials were ultimately recovered by the Americans remain locked away in classified files. The story of K-129 is emblematic of the Cold War era's secrecy, intrigue, and competition between superpowers, with both nations still unwilling to divulge the full details of this extraordinary episode.
The case of Jack the Stripper. Now, there's a mystery that still grips the imagination, even decades later. Picture London in the 1960s, gritty, industrial, and full of shadows. It was a city still finding its feet after the war, with certain areas struggling in the grip of poverty and crime. And into this world stepped a killer, one whose name would be whispered in fear but whose face was never seen. His crimes began to surface between 1964 and 1965, a spree of at least 6 murders. Some say it might have been more. All young women, all sex workers, and all found naked, their clothes stripped away like some macabre calling card. The press, ever quick to coin a nickname, called him Jack the Stripper, drawing a dark parallel to that other infamous Jack the Ripper. The bodies, you see, were discovered in places like the River Thames or abandoned industrial sites in West London, desolate, eerie spots that seemed chosen to taunt the police. The victims showed signs of asphyxiation, though not always in the same way, and it wasn't just their state of undress that connected the crimes. There were other details. Traces of paint particles on the bodies, suggesting the killer might have worked in a job where such materials were common. Yet despite these clues, the investigation hit brick wall after brick wall. Now here's where it gets truly puzzling. There were suspects, plenty of them. Mungo Island, for instance, was a security guard near one of the dump sites. When he killed himself in 1965, he left behind a note that read, "I can't stick it any longer." Some saw that as a confession, but there was no hard evidence linking him to the murders. And then there was Harold Jones, a convicted child killer who had served his time and was living quietly in London during the killings. His history made him a chilling candidate, but again, nothing solid. Can you imagine the frustration of the detectives on this case? This was long before DNA analysis or modern profiling. They had to rely on witness statements, hunches, and circumstantial evidence. And even then, they faced societal indifference. After all, these were sex workers. The public, and sadly even the police, often saw them as disposable, which meant the urgency to solve the case wasn't as strong as it might have been for victims from more respectable walks of life. And then, just as suddenly as they started, the murders stopped. The killer vanished into the fog of history, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions and shattered lives. Over the years, theories have abounded. Was he a local? Someone with a grudge against women of the night, or perhaps someone with a more personal vendetta? Some even suggest he was an opportunist who simply decided to stop, if such monsters can ever simply stop. The case remains open to this day, a haunting reminder of how fragile justice can be. And of course, people still speculate, piecing together theories from scraps of old reports and testimonies. But in the end, Jack the Stripper remains a phantom, an enigma lost in the shadows of a bygone London.
The Montauk Project is a widely discussed conspiracy theory centered on alleged secret experiments conducted at Camp Hero, a decommissioned Air Force base in Montauk, New York. The theory first gained traction with Preston B. Nichols's book, 1982, which details supposed government-sanctioned experiments involving mind control, time travel, interdimensional travel, and contact with extraterrestrial life. The narrative often ties the Montauk Project to earlier conspiracy theories, particularly the Philadelphia experiment, a supposed 1943 experiment aimed at rendering the USS Eldridge invisible to radar, which allegedly led to unintended time travel phenomena. According to proponents, survivors and remnants of the Philadelphia experiment were later involved in the Montauk experiments, which aimed to further explore and weaponize such phenomena. One of the central claims is that the Montauk Project utilized advanced technologies, allegedly involving electromagnetic fields and esoteric sciences, to manipulate human consciousness. These experiments purportedly included creating psychic soldiers, inducing telepathy, and even programming individuals for covert operations. A recurring figure in the lore is a Montauk chair, a device said to amplify psychic abilities to open portals to other times and dimensions. Critics argue that the Montauk Project lacks credible evidence and is primarily based on anecdotal accounts and pseudoscience. Skeptics view the claims as a mixture of urban legend, fabricated stories, and misinterpretations of historical events. However, the theory persists in popular culture, inspiring films, books, and TV shows, notably the Netflix series. Believers in the Montauk Project suggest that secrecy surrounding Camp Hero and other military installations lends credence to the possibility of undisclosed activities. Despite debunking efforts, the theory continues to fascinate conspiracy enthusiasts, serving as a lens for broader societal anxieties about government overreach, technological ethics, and the unknown.
Göbekli Tepe, located in southeastern Turkey, is one of the most enigmatic archaeological sites in the world. Discovered in the 1960s, but not extensively excavated until the 1990s by German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, it is often referred to as the world's oldest known temple. Dating back to approximately 9600 BCE, Göbekli Tepe predates Stonehenge by more than 6,000 years and was constructed by hunter-gatherer societies during a time before agriculture and settled life were believed to have emerged. This challenges conventional narratives about the development of human civilization. The site is composed of a series of massive circular and oval megalithic enclosures, each featuring T-shaped limestone pillars, some of which are intricately decorated with carvings of animals, abstract symbols, and human-like figures. These carvings provide a glimpse into the symbolic and spiritual world of the site's builders, though their precise meanings remain unknown. The sheer scale of construction, combined with the advanced artistic and engineering skills displayed, raises profound questions about how these hunter-gatherer communities were organized and what drove them to undertake such monumental efforts. One of Göbekli Tepe's greatest mysteries lies in its purpose. Unlike later temples, there is no evidence of permanent settlement around the site, suggesting it may have been a gathering place for rituals or a ceremonial center for regional groups. The fact that it was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE further deepens the intrigue. Scholars debate whether the burial was a ritual act, an effort to preserve the structures, or simply a practical response to changing social or environmental conditions. Göbekli Tepe has fundamentally reshaped our understanding of prehistoric societies, showing that the development of complex social and spiritual practices may have preceded and even catalyzed the advent of agriculture and sedentism rather than arising as a consequence of them. However, many aspects of the site remain shrouded in mystery, including the identity of its builders, the details of its construction techniques, and the full extent of its cultural significance. As excavations and research continue, Göbekli Tepe stands as a testament to the sophistication of ancient human ingenuity and the enduring puzzles of our shared past.
The disappearance of Paula Jean Welden remains one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. On December 1, 1946, 18-year-old Paula, a sophomore at Bennington College in Vermont, went for a hike on the Long Trail, a popular trail in the Green Mountains. She told her roommate she intended to take a break from studying and explore the trail, leaving campus around 2:45 p.m. Dressed in light clothing and without significant gear, she was ill-prepared for the cold weather and potential challenges of the hike. Witnesses reported seeing her on the trail near Glastonbury Mountain, but she was never seen again. When Paula failed to return to her dormitory that evening, her roommates assumed she had stayed out longer than planned. However, when she missed classes the following day, concern grew. Her parents, who lived in Stamford, Connecticut, were notified and a large-scale search began. Hundreds of volunteers, state police, and even members of the FBI participated, scouring the area by foot, horseback, and air. Despite these efforts, no trace of Paula was found. The search revealed no clothing, personal belongings, or signs of a struggle, deepening the mystery. Paula's disappearance led to widespread speculation and numerous theories. Some believed she had fallen victim to foul play, possibly from a stranger or someone she knew. Others speculated she succumbed to the elements or had an accident, and her body was never found in the rugged terrain. There were even suggestions she intentionally disappeared, starting a new life elsewhere, though no evidence supported this. The case highlighted deficiencies in Vermont's law enforcement system at the time. The state had no official state police force, relying instead on local sheriffs and volunteers for such investigations. This lack of resources and coordination likely hampered the search efforts. In response, Vermont established the Vermont State Police in 1947, partly inspired by the lessons learned from the Welden case. To this day, Paula's disappearance remains unsolved. It has become a part of local folklore, contributing to the legend of the Bennington Triangle, an area reportedly associated with strange disappearances and unexplained phenomena. While the lack of closure continues to haunt those connected to the case, Paula's story is a reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring mystery of the unknown. The death of Kendrick Johnson is a deeply troubling and controversial case that has attracted national and international attention. Kendrick, a 17-year-old high school student, was found dead on January 11, 2013, inside a rolled-up gym mat at Lowndes High School in Valdosta, Georgia. His body was discovered in a vertical position, headfirst in the mat, which was stored in an upright position in the school's gym. The initial investigation by local authorities concluded that Kendrick's death was a tragic accident, suggesting he had fallen into the mat while attempting to retrieve a pair of shoes and became trapped. However, this explanation was met with widespread skepticism and outrage, particularly from Kendrick's family and supporters. The Johnson family has consistently disputed the official ruling, citing evidence they believe points to foul play. A private autopsy commissioned by the family contradicted the findings of the initial investigation, concluding that Kendrick died from unexplained, apparent non-accidental blunt force trauma. This finding fueled suspicions of a possible cover-up and intensified public scrutiny of the case. The circumstances surrounding the handling of evidence also raised significant concerns. For example, parts of Kendrick's body were missing when his family exhumed his body for the private autopsy, and newspapers were found stuffed in place of some internal organs, which authorities later explained as standard practice after organ removal during an autopsy. The case has been reopened multiple times due to public pressure, including a federal investigation initiated in 2014. However, no charges have been filed, and the official cause of death remains accidental positional asphyxia. Allegations of racial bias, mishandling of evidence, and obstruction of justice have loomed over the case, especially since Kendrick was black, and there have been accusations that individuals connected to influential families may have been involved. Kendrick Johnson's death remains an unresolved mystery and a painful example of the limitations of the legal and investigative system for many Americans. It has become a rallying point for activists advocating for greater transparency, accountability, and justice in cases involving young black lives. Despite years of advocacy and investigation, Kendrick's family continues to seek answers and accountability for their son's death, ensuring that the case remains in the public eye.
The Pascagoula Abduction is one of the most famous alien encounter stories in the United States, occurring on the evening of October 11, 1973. Two co-workers, Charles Hickson, 42, and Calvin Parker, 19, were fishing on the banks of the Pascagoula River in Mississippi when they experienced something they claimed was utterly extraordinary. According to their accounts, a strange craft descended near their location, emitting a blue light and a mechanical buzzing sound. Before they could react, three bizarre humanoid-like beings emerged and floated toward them. The beings were described as humanoid but distinctly non-human. They were approximately 5 feet tall, pale and wrinkled, with claw-like hands, no discernible eyes, and strange cone-shaped structures where their ears and noses would typically be. The entities seemed to hover above the ground rather than walk. Hickson and Parker claimed they were paralyzed and levitated into the craft by these beings. Hickson and Parker claimed they were paralyzed and levitated into the craft by these beings. Inside the craft, Hickson recalled undergoing a physical examination by what he described as a robotic eye or device that scanned his body. Parker, though reportedly conscious, later stated that he remembered little of the events inside the UFO, because he was too terrified and may have fainted. The entire ordeal lasted about 20 minutes, after which they were released back to the riverbank, unharmed but deeply shaken. The men reported the encounter to local law enforcement that night. Having reported the encounter to local law enforcement that night, initially officers were skeptical, but hidden tape recordings of the two men talking privately revealed them discussing their fears and confusion about the experience, lending credibility to their story. Their consistent accounts, coupled with their visible emotional distress, intrigued investigators. Over the years, Hickson and Parker's story has been subjected to scrutiny by skeptics and researchers alike. Having both, Hickson and Parker's story had been subjected to scrutiny by skeptics and researchers alike. The case remains one of the most compelling in UFO lore due to the witnesses' credibility and the lack of evidence of hoaxing. Calvin Parker, who initially avoided the spotlight, later came forward in his later years to further elaborate on his experience, which he maintained until his death in 2022. Skeptics have suggested that stress, hallucinations, or sleep paralysis might explain the incident, but believers in extraterrestrial encounters view the Pascagoula Abduction as one of the most authentic and well-documented UFO encounters in history. Deep in the heart of Australia's arid outback lies a mystery as vast as the desert that surrounds it. This is the story of the Marree Man, a colossal geoglyph etched into the earth, whose origins remain a tantalizing enigma. Stretching over 4 kilometers, the figure depicts what appears to be an indigenous hunter, spear or boomerang in hand, a symbol of ancient culture, but created by unknown hands in the late 20th century. To this day, the question lingers: who made it and why?
You know, Lisa, every time I fly over that thing, it gives me the chills. 4 kilometers long, smack in the middle of nowhere. How does something like that just appear?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, think about it. No one saw it being made. No trucks, no workers, no noise. Just one day, bam! There it was, etched into the desert like it had always been there.
I remember when Trevor Wright spotted it back in '98. Said he was flying low looking for feral camels and saw this shape. Thought he was seeing things at first.
And the way it's drawn. An Aboriginal hunter, but not quite right. The proportions, the style, almost like someone was imitating Aboriginal art without really understanding it.
Makes you wonder. Locals? Tourists? A crazy artist? Couldn't have been an easy job, though. You'd need GPS, heavy equipment, and a bloody good plan. The desert doesn't exactly hand you tools.
Exactly. And don't forget those weird faxes. The ones with American spellings and measurements in yards and miles. Whoever sent those was toying with us, dropping hints but never enough to solve the puzzle.
Yeah, like that one line about it being a gift to Australia. Some reckon it's got an American connection, maybe even military folks. They've got the tech and the secrecy for something like this.
But why? If it was some grand gesture or a publicity stunt, wouldn't they have come forward by now, claimed their fame?
Unless it went wrong. Maybe they wanted the attention but chickened out when they realized it could stir up legal or cultural trouble.
That's another thing. It's on Dairy land, sacred to the Aboriginal people. If it wasn't made by someone local, it feels disrespectful. Like they used the culture for a stunt without understanding the meaning behind it.
True. And yet, some folks think it's just a really big prank. You know, someone with too much time and a twisted sense of humor.
A prank? Come on, Joe, that's more than a prank, that's a bloody mission. The lines are so precise, it had to be done from the air. And you'd need bulldozers for those trenches. Not exactly a one-man job.
Maybe it was aliens. You know, like the Nazca lines in Peru. Giant signs for some otherworldly visitor.
Oh, sure. Aliens with a taste for Australian iconography. Makes perfect sense. But you're right, it's a bit like the Nazca lines. Big, bold, and baffling.
And then there's the restoration. Locals went out there a few years back to retrace the lines, make sure it didn't fade completely. Funny, isn't it? Something no one asked for, and yet we've kind of adopted it.
Yeah. Love it or hate it, it's become part of the landscape. A symbol of mystery, maybe even a bit of pride. It's ours now, even if we don't know where it came from.
And maybe that's the beauty of it. The Marree Man is like the desert itself, timeless, mysterious, and refusing to give up all its secrets.
The Marree Man stands as a testament to human curiosity and the allure of the unknown. Who carved its lines? Why did they choose this place, this figure? The answers remain hidden beneath the shifting sands, leaving only questions for those who dare to wonder.
The disappearance of Tara Calico is one of the most enduring mysteries in American crime history. Tara Calico, a 19-year-old college student, vanished on the morning of September 20th, 1988 in Belen, New Mexico. She left her home to go on a bike ride along her usual route, a stretch of State Road 47, but never returned. Tara's mother, Patty Dole, grew concerned when Tara failed to come home and contacted authorities. Her Walkman and pieces of a cassette tape were later found along the roadside, suggesting she might have dropped them during an abduction attempt. Tara's case drew national attention in 1989 when a Polaroid photograph was found in a parking lot in Port St. Joe, Florida. The image depicted a young woman and a boy, both bound and gagged in the back of what appeared to be a van. The girl bore a strong resemblance to Tara, and her mother believed it was her, citing details such as a scar on the woman's leg. The boy in the photo was speculated to be Michael Henley, another New Mexico child who had gone missing around the same time. However, Michael's remains were later found in the Zuni Mountains, where he had apparently died of exposure, complicating the connection to Tara. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged. Some suggest she was abducted and killed by someone she encountered on her bike ride. Others believe she was a victim of human trafficking or a more complex criminal conspiracy. While suspects have been named and leads pursued, no definitive answers have been found. In 2021, renewed efforts by law enforcement, aided by advancements in technology, have focused on resolving this cold case, but no breakthrough has occurred. Tara Calico's disappearance remains an open case, symbolizing both the pain of unresolved loss and the hope for justice that drives ongoing investigations. The story continues to captivate the public, serving as a haunting reminder of the enduring mysteries surrounding missing persons cases.
Oscar Zeta Acosta's disappearance is one of the most enduring mysteries tied to the Chicano movement and the countercultural era of the 1960s and 70s. Born in 1935 in El Paso, Texas, Acosta grew up in California and became a lawyer, novelist, and activist whose work was deeply intertwined with his identity as a Chicano and his critiques of systemic injustice. His writings, combined with his larger-than-life persona, made him a controversial and iconic figure. However, his sudden disappearance in 1974 has left many questions unanswered, fueling speculation and myth-making around his life and fate. Acosta's life was marked by a combination of brilliance, excess, and radicalism. He rose to prominence in the late 1960s and early 1970s as a lawyer defending activists in the Chicano movement. One of his most famous cases involved representing the Brown Berets, a militant Chicano group advocating for Mexican-American civil rights. He also ran for sheriff of Los Angeles County in 1970, using his campaign as a platform to highlight police brutality and racial inequality. Beyond his legal work, Acosta was a gifted writer whose semi-autobiographical novels, The Autobiography of a Brown Buffalo, published in 1972, and The Revolt of the Cockroach People, published in 1973, captured the struggles, frustrations, and resilience of Chicano communities. These works blended humor, rage, and introspection, making them essential contributions to American literature. Acosta's friendship with Gonzo journalist Hunter S. Thompson added another layer to his mystique. Acosta was immortalized as the eccentric and larger-than-life Dr. Gonzo in Thompson's seminal work, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, published in 1971. The character's outrageous antics reflected Acosta's real-life penchant for pushing boundaries, whether in his activism, courtroom performances, or personal life. This association with Thompson helped Acosta gain wider recognition, but some critics argue it overshadowed his serious contributions to Chicano literature and activism. By 1974, Acosta's life was marked by increasing instability. He struggled with drug addiction, erratic behavior, and the personal toll of his activism. In May of that year, he traveled to Mazatlan, Mexico, seeking a reprieve or possibly inspiration for his next project. The last known contact was a phone call to his son, Marco, during which Acosta cryptically mentioned boarding a boat with white snow. This phrase has been interpreted as a metaphor for drugs or as an indication of foul play. Acosta was never heard from again, and despite investigations, no trace of him was ever found. Theories about his disappearance abound. Some suggest he was murdered, possibly due to his political activism or involvement in drug circles. Others believe he may have been the victim of an accident or even staged his own disappearance to escape the pressures of his tumultuous life. His son Marco has expressed the belief that Acosta was likely killed in Mexico, given the political and criminal climate of the region at the time. Acosta's disappearance has become as much a part of his legacy as his writings and activism. It has cemented his status as a mysterious and romanticized figure, embodying the struggles and contradictions of the Chicano experience in mid-20th century America. His works continue to resonate with readers and activists, ensuring that his voice remains a vital part of the ongoing dialogue about identity, justice, and cultural pride. While the mystery of his disappearance remains unsolved, it has only amplified the enduring fascination with his life and work, keeping Oscar Zeta Acosta firmly entrenched in the pantheon of radical American figures.
On a chilly April evening in 1876, in the stately confines of the Priory, a house nestled in the London suburb of Balham, a man lay writhing in agony. His name was Charles Bravo, a young and ambitious barrister whose future seemed secure by his marriage to the wealthy Florence Ricardo. But, as he clutched his stomach, his face twisted in pain, Bravo's life ebbed away in a horrifying spectacle that would grip Victorian England for decades. The cause, poison, antimony, a deadly substance commonly used in small doses as medicine but lethal when administered improperly. The death shocked society not merely because of its gruesome nature, but due to the dark web of intrigue it unraveled. 3 days passed between Bravo's first cries of pain and his eventual death, yet in all that time the dying man said little that could illuminate his fate. What exactly happened in the Priory? Who was responsible for his untimely end? Now imagine standing in a small, dimly lit drawing room of the house during those tense days.
Jane, I don't know what to say anymore. The doctors, they look at me as though I've done something terrible. But what could I have done? Charles, he barely spoke before he...
Florence was no stranger to scandal. Before marrying Bravo, she'd been a widow with a tarnished reputation, largely due to her passionate and unconventional affair with Dr. James Gully, a respected but much older physician. Society whispered that Florence married Charles Bravo to restore her good name, but it was no secret that their union was far from harmonious. Bravo, domineering and controlling, was said to resent Florence's independence and her past. Theirs was a marriage fraught with tension, an open secret in their circle.
Madam, you've nothing to explain to anyone. You were upstairs when Charles fell ill. Whatever happened to him, it wasn't your doing.
But they don't care, do they, Jane? The inquest, the doctors, they'll dredge up everything. They'll talk about James Gully again, about my past. They'll say I poisoned him, that I wanted to be rid of him. But why would I? Why would I bring such disgrace on myself?
It was true that Florence had much to lose. Poisoning her husband would have exposed her to scandal and disgrace, perhaps even the gallows. Yet the rumours persisted. The doctors who attended Bravo suspected foul play, but no one could agree on the culprit. Some wondered if Florence had indeed been pushed to desperation. Others whispered that Jane Cox herself might have had a hand in the tragedy.
I don't mean to speak ill of the dead, madam, but Mr. Bravo, he wasn't kind to you, or to anyone in this house. Perhaps someone else decided to take matters into their own hands.
What are you saying, Jane? You think someone, one of the servants, perhaps?
All I'm saying is that there are secrets in this house, madam, and sometimes secrets have a way of surfacing when you least expect.
The relationship between Florence and Jane was itself a subject of speculation during the inquest. Jane, a widow with her own struggles, had worked for Florence even before her marriage to Bravo and was fiercely loyal. Some suggested that Jane might have acted out of misplaced devotion to Florence, seeking to rid her mistress of an unhappy marriage. Others thought Jane simply knew more than she let on. As the inquest progressed, more questions than answers emerged. Had Bravo accidentally poisoned himself while self-medicating? Was Florence the desperate wife, driven to murder by her husband's alleged cruelty? Or was Jane Cox the true architect of the tragedy, acting in Florence's defense, or perhaps for her own mysterious reasons?
They'll never believe me, Jane, no matter what I say, no matter what I do. Charles is dead, and now I'll be judged for it.
And judged she was. Florence Bravo's reputation was tarnished yet again, though the jury eventually returned an open verdict. They could not determine how Charles Bravo came to ingest the poison that killed him. To this day, the mystery remains unresolved. The truth, whether it lies in Florence's despair, Jane's loyalty, or some accident or misstep, died with Charles Bravo on that fateful night in 1876. The case stands as a testament to the shadows that linger in even the grandest of homes and the secrets that time cannot erase. In the heart of Vatican City, a mystery has lingered for over 4 decades. The disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. The 15-year-old girl, a Vatican citizen, vanished on a summer evening in 1983 after attending a music lesson near Piazza Sant'Apollinare in Rome. What began as a routine day for Emanuela soon spiraled into one of the most perplexing cases in modern history, shrouded in layers of conspiracy, crime, and unanswered questions. Let us delve into this enigma through the voices of 2 investigators, Anna, a journalist passionate about justice, and Luca, a seasoned investigator.
It's hard to believe, Luca. A young girl disappears from the streets of Rome, and 40 years later, we still don't know what happened. The theories, they're endless. Some say it was tied to the mafia, others claim it was a political kidnapping. And then there's the Vatican. Always the Vatican. What do you think happened?
Anna, this case is like peeling an onion. Every layer you uncover reveals another one beneath it. The Vatican's silence over the years is deafening. Think about it. A 15-year-old girl, a citizen of the smallest but one of the most powerful states in the world, goes missing. And the official response? Practically nothing. Suspicious, to say the least.
And let's not forget Mehmet Ali Agha, the man who shot Pope John Paul II. He claims Emanuela was kidnapped to demand his release. But is that even credible? It feels too convenient, like a distraction from the truth.
Convenient, yes, but worth considering. Agha's claims can't be ignored entirely. Remember, the Cold War was still in full swing in the 80s, and the Vatican wasn't just a religious institution, it was a political player. If someone wanted to pressure the Vatican, kidnapping Emanuela might have seemed like a way to do it.
What about the Mafia, Luca? The Banda della Magliana? They were powerful in Rome during the 80s, and some believe they kidnapped Emanuela over a debt the Vatican Bank owed them. Could it be that simple?
Simple? No. Plausible? Maybe. The Banda della Magliana was deeply entwined with Vatican financial dealings, and it's no secret the Vatican Bank was involved in some shady business back then. But here's the thing, Anna, if it was the Mafia, where's the proof? And why hasn't anyone come forward after all this time?
Fear, perhaps? Or maybe the truth implicates people who are untouchable. Remember the Teutonic Cemetery incident in 2019? The Vatican allowed 2 tombs to be opened after an anonymous tip, only to find nothing. It's as if every lead is a game of smoke and mirrors.
Indeed, the Teutonic Cemetery search was one of many false starts. Yet the reopening of the investigation in 2023 signals a glimmer of hope for the Orlandi family. For Anna and Luca, and for those who still care about Emanuela's fate, the case is far from closed.
So, Luca, after all these years, what's your gut feeling? Will we ever know what happened to Emanuela?
My gut tells me the answers are there, locked away in Vatican vaults or hidden in the memories of people too afraid to speak. The question is whether the Vatican or anyone else has the courage to reveal them. Until then, Emanuela remains a symbol, a reminder of how easily the powerful can obscure the truth.
And so the mystery of Emanuela Orlandi endures, a haunting tale of a girl lost and a world unwilling or unable to find her.
The disappearance of Richey Edwards, the guitarist and lyricist of the Manic Street Preachers, remains one of music's most enduring mysteries. Edwards vanished on February 1, 1995, at the age of 27, shortly before the band was set to embark on an American tour. He was last confirmed to have checked out of the Embassy Hotel in London early that morning. 2 weeks later, his car, a Vauxhall Cavalier, was discovered abandoned near the Severn Bridge. Despite extensive searches and investigations, no conclusive evidence has ever emerged to determine his fate. Richey Edwards was an enigmatic figure, celebrated for his emotionally charged introspective lyrics that explored themes of identity, alienation, and human fragility. His personal challenges, including struggles with mental health, self-image, and self-harm, were evident in his interviews and artistic expressions, lending his work a profound, haunting depth. These struggles, combined with his sudden disappearance, deepened the intrigue surrounding his story and led to endless speculation. In the years since, there have been numerous reported sightings of Edwards in places as far-flung as Goa, India, and as close as Newport, Wales. None of these reports have been substantiated, but they've fueled theories about his fate, ranging from a deliberate decision to step away from public life to circumstances that remain unknowable. Despite the discovery of his car, no further evidence has been found to explain what happened after he left the Embassy Hotel that morning. In 2008, Richey Edwards was declared presumed dead under UK law, a decision made for legal purposes, but one that left many unanswered questions. His family, fans, and even his bandmates have reflected on the uncertainty of his story. The Manic Street Preachers chose to honor his memory by continuing their work as a three-piece band and paying tribute through their music. The album Journal for Plague Lovers, released in 2009 for instance, was created entirely using lyrics Edwards had written before his disappearance, keeping his voice alive in their creative journey. Edwards' disappearance has since become a powerful cultural mystery, symbolizing unresolved questions and the weight of loss. Fans continue to ponder what might have happened, drawn by the deep connection he forged through his art. Whether remembered as a brilliant lyricist, a complex individual, or an icon of unanswered questions, Richey Edwards' legacy remains timeless. The case of Kaspar Hauser is one of history's enduring mysteries, shrouded in intrigue and speculation. Kaspar Hauser appeared seemingly out of nowhere on May 26, 1828, in Nuremberg, Germany. He was a young man of about 16 years, dressed in ragged clothes and carrying a letter addressed to a local cavalry captain. The letter claimed that he had been raised in near-total isolation and knew little of the outside world. Hauser could barely speak or walk properly, and his behavior suggested he had been confined for much of his life. This strange arrival sparked public curiosity and launched numerous theories about his identity. According to Hauser, he had been kept in a small dark room for as long as he could remember. He claimed that a man had taken care of him but never revealed his face. This mysterious caretaker would feed him and teach him a few words, but kept him isolated until his sudden release. Hauser's limited speech and unusual behavior were seen as evidence supporting his story. His case became a sensation, with some believing he was a member of European royalty, possibly the missing heir to the throne of Baden. Others dismissed him as a fraud or an abandoned child from a poor family. Hauser's life took a darker turn in the years following his appearance. He was taken in by various guardians who sought to educate him and uncover his true identity. However, he became the target of multiple alleged attacks. In 1829, he claimed he was assaulted by a masked man who warned him to stay silent. This fueled theories that someone wanted to silence him and suppress his potential royal lineage. The mystery deepened on December 14, 1833, when Hauser was found with a stab wound in his chest. He died 3 days later, claiming that he had been lured to his death by a man who promised to reveal more about his origins. A note allegedly written by the killer was found near the scene, but its authenticity remains debated. Some believe Hauser inflicted the wound himself, perhaps as part of a scheme gone wrong, while others think he was murdered to protect a powerful secret. To this day, the identity of Kaspar Hauser and the truth behind his life remain unresolved. Some historians argue he was a psychologically troubled individual who fabricated his story for attention. Others point to inconsistencies in his accounts and speculate that he might have been a victim of royal intrigue. Modern forensic studies of Hauser's remains and artifacts have yielded inconclusive results, leaving the case open to interpretation. The story of Kaspar Hauser continues to captivate and mystify, inspiring books, films, and debates about identity, deception, and human resilience.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the unexplained. We hope these mysteries have sparked your curiosity and encouraged you to delve deeper into the unknown. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, and never stop seeking the truth.